up on this.
My name is Chris Gore, and if you were a fan of G4 TV or Attack of the Show back in the day, you may have a vague memory of who I was.
I don't even have a vague memory of who I was. What's going on? Wow,
Greetings, you sexy pop culture junkies, and welcome to Raw Rant, where opinions matter, whether you agree with them or not. We're here hanging out with some of your favorite nerds, and today we're going to be talking about Hollywood and why you can't do that no more. I'm your host, Shane, and with me, as always, my brother Brian.
What's up?
Also with us tonight is a man who puts the wood in Hollywood because his takes turn us on. From the Burnett work, the Robert Meyer Burnett.
Well, why couldn't I have done that for the girls in high school, man?
Yeah, because we were nerds, bro.
You're a late bloomer, bro. It's all good.
That's actually not true, but okay.
Also with us tonight, his Tuesday live streams are so fermented, 75% of his team has to attend AA meetings. From the Salty Nerd Podcast, Matthew Kadish.
Thank you. Robert, if anything in Free Enterprise is autobiographical, I'd say that you had plenty of women that you pleased. And I do want to mention that having watched Chris Gore's documentary, Attack of the Doc, wow, I can't wait to talk about it because it was excellent.
It's really good.
Hold on a second, get a chance. Here we go. And tonight's special guests go way back to a little show you might remember called Attack of the Show. Their new documentary, Attack of the Doc, celebrates everything you remember about that show, is now available to stream worldwide. G4 TV legends Zach Selwyn and Chris Gore. Woo! You're legends in our heart, brother. Listen, guys, it's so great to have you on the show. The documentary is amazing, dare I say, life-changing. Can you just share with us what the response has been like?
Ooh, it's kind of crazy. It's 99% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes with more than 100 reviews. We're one review away from, it looks like it'll be a fresh review from the critic score. But I thought, like, first of all, Rob, you know from making films, you've seen it 100 times and you don't even know if it's good. You're like, right. I don't know if it's good. And people seem to be really responding to the movie. I think a couple things. One, the member berries, seeing the old G4 footage because it's an archival documentary, which was an approach that was by design, the type of doc that I wanted to make. And then secondly, it's some of what's being said and discussed in the film is very timely.
Yeah, it really is.
We saw the launch of the new G4, which did not go as planned. There are a lot of reasons for that. I purposely kind of ignored it in the doc. I mean, it's commented on briefly, but in a way of acknowledging that it happened. But there's a great scene where Zach Selwyn is singing this song in the courtyard of where the old G4 was, singing a song about the new G4 coming back. I said, just get bored in the middle of the song and look at your phone. So he does that, and unplanned, some guy in the background drives his bike, and we added the little ding ding. It just sort of it gets a big laugh when you see the movie with a group, and you kind of know it's the comment is no comment. And at the time that we shot that last summer, we didn't know what was going to happen with G4. We're like, let's just kind of ignore it. Whatever happens with it, it's gonna whatever. Literally the day after I showed the film to a bunch of students at the Tucson Film Festival, got a big screening, bunch of students, first group screening of people who aren't fans, just people. And the very next day on Sunday, it was announced G4 was canceled on social media. So a lot of great things there. I have so much to talk about, and it's so great to have Zach on the stream here, even though he's escaping LA, apparently. I don't know what's going on. Maybe there was the crime in your neighborhood.
He was actually kidnapped, and he's still calling in.
Yeah.
Do you have an Amber Alert out on you, Zach?
Oh,
they got
him. Kidnappers got him.
They got him. They got him.
There you go.
So, Chris, real quick,
he just hung up.
While we get Zach back, can you just kind of take us through the making of the documentary? Oh, Zach's back.
Hey.
So, Zach, where are you escaping to right now?
I'm just taking my son home from school, but it's LA, so it's a 4-hour commute. So I'm just, rolling deep down the 101. Coldwater Canyon, what's good?
When you get home, hop on your setup in your home office. For sure.
I will.
That's
4-hour
great.
commute.
Zach is a good dad, man. He is such a good cat. Like, I knew Zach before G4.
Yes, tell us the
Before
story.
back of the show. He was on a show that was produced by Mark Cronin. He and I both did shows for him. He did a show called Dodgeball. He was a host on that show. It was like a serious, actually a dodgeball league, which I think was on FX. Correct me if I'm wrong, Zach.
Game Show Network, my friend.
Game Show Network. I was on a show called The X Show, which was like the low budget version of the Man Show. It was the first professional thing I ever did in television. It was a weird experience for me, but I kind of learned how to do TV or the basic concepts on there because I have no professional experience. And it was great. I met Zach there and a lot of cool people that I ended up working with later. And Cronin, he's famous for doing the Howard Stern show. He did the old Channel 9 show with all the sketches and whatnot.
Wow.
Then Cronin ended up selling his company because they did Rock of Ages and all the surreal life shows, all the biggest reality shows at the time. And he sold the company for like multiple house kind of money.
Yeah.
And he's yet to call Chris and I since.
No kidding. But it's great because always running into Zach, it was just like, I knew we'd have a good time. When he started working at G4, first of all, it was awesome. But secondly, like whenever they sent us to something, it's like if Zach was around like Austin, Texas, South by Southwest, like Zach knows how to hang. It's one of those things like as talent, as on-camera talent, Zach has that ability that I try to have where he can also produce and be the talent, right? So like what I would always say to producers, because I never auditioned for G4. I just was offered the job. And I really didn't like I say, TV was not the thing I aspired to do.
How did you get it? How did you end up there getting it?
It was a weird thing. Quick version, Gavin Purcell, who was the executive producer of Attack of the Show, I had done a segment for him for National Enquirer TV, which I completely forgot about, like in the early 2000s. He came to my house in Pasadena, shot it, thought I was like funny and kind of natural on camera, and was like, he said, look, we have this movie segment called DV Tuesday. You basically come in every Tuesday and talk about movies. And it was for the show The Screensavers, which I watched. I love The Screensavers and X-Play. So I said, look, I have 3 things I want. I said, I want to be able to wear whatever I want within reason. Like I would wear like a Film Threat t-shirt or my favorite band or Star Trek shirt or whatever. I said, I want to be able to say whatever I want within reason. I know I can't swear, although later on I learned that I could mispronounce swear words.
Yes.
So I would say like this person is a total shatheed. Then that was in reference to a director that I don't like. And then I said, I want to be able to keep all the DVDs that I review. He said, well, I can agree to the first 2, but we keep the DVDs in a producer's library, which I found out later is where the producers steal DVDs and take them home. So whatever, I did it, and I it was great. I was on 3 episodes of The Screensavers. Then I was sworn to secrecy. We're going to change the name of the show to Attack of the Show. And I thought it was the stupidest name I ever heard. So dumb. So this is like, so then I started doing it, and it just sort of came. A lot of people think like G4 was great out of the gate. G4 kind of sucked at the beginning, and they didn't know what they wanted to do. It took about 5 years for it to develop into something cool. But when they added like Zach to the team, which was probably around the same time as myself, maybe a little bit after, they were doing like segments.
Like 2006 was my first episode, like April of 2006.
How did you end up on the show, Zach?
I had been on this show on ESPN. It was called Dream Job. It was like this search for the next great sports center anchor. And it was like an American Idol for Sports Center. And I was doing comedy in LA and music at the time. And I had real long hair. And so I showed up on the set. And I showed up at the audition like the only guy who was dressed like a freaking hippie from the 70s. And I was better than everybody else because I know sports. And I just had a good run. And from there, a guy who was running the NFL network who knew the president of G4 like started reaching out to me. And he's like, you should audition for this show. And I didn't know what Attack of the Show was, but I was just a baby. I was like, I need a job. So I showed up and then like auditioned a couple times in studio with Kevin and Olivia. And Olivia had just joined the team like maybe a month before. So I was sort of brought in to join them, and then that was it. I got the job, and I was like, I don't even know what this is, and so that's how I got on. But quickly, yeah, like Gavin Purcell, the first week, him and Jim Downs, they take me aside. They gave me an Xbox. They gave me a PS3, maybe, whatever the hot console. They gave me a Wii, and they're like, go play with all this shit and learn everything you can. And, learn about next gen, consoles. And so all of a sudden I was thrown into nerd camp, and I loved it. I was just, people do this for a living. So that's how I got on.
That's awesome.
Originally.
So you guys, Attack of the Show and G4 was on for a long time. What made you decide you wanted to revisit and actually do a documentary kind of, and what was the goal? What did you want to achieve by creating this movie?
Well, a couple things. One, I'd been going to South by Southwest since before G4, the late 90s. And I loved South by Southwest, Austin, Texas. Great festival. And post G4 ending, G4 ended for me 2012. We shot everything, but they still aired episodes through 2013, the first third or half of 2013, because they had contracts to fulfill. So we were done in 2012 with the show. But everywhere I went, it was like, hey, you're Chris Gore from that G4 thing. But whatever happened to that network? What happened to G4? And it was so, honestly, excuse me, so tired of being asked that question. I thought, first of all, I don't know why they ended it. I honestly don't know why they ended it. Okay. So I was like, I want to find out why. But I said to myself, I remember just saying out loud, someone should make a documentary to answer that question. And I thought, well, I'll just make the documentary. Literally, the name popped into my head, Attack of the Doc. Yeah. So I was at South by Southwest, and I registered attackofthedoc.com. I grabbed the Twitter, the Instagram, the Facebook of that name. I thought, well, I'll make a documentary someday. So I did, a year later, I did an unsuccessful Kickstarter. I could do a whole live stream just on crowdfunding campaigns. Then I did a successful one the following year. And then we started shooting in March of 2020. We built a studio. We brought in our first interview, which was Frank Meyer. We had scheduled a whole bunch and my goal was, I'm going to start kind of with people on the periphery. I'm going to work my way up to Kevin and Olivia. And it didn't work out that way. The pandemic happened, as everyone knows. That restricted what you could do shooting wise, restricted a lot of things. Then the second thing that happened after that was they announced the new G4 was coming back, and I was supposed to be a part of the big reunion. Well, that didn't happen because of COVID rules. And I thought, I have to pivot my strategy for making this movie. I'm gonna make an archival documentary. I'm gonna hear people tell stories behind the scenes whose stories have never been told. And honestly, if there's one criticism that's come up it's just a couple reviews have mentioned Kevin and Olivia aren't in the movie. And it's well, I listened to and watched every bit of footage of them talking about Attack of the Show. And honestly, they don't really have many interesting things to say. It's a lot of glad handing, and it was so great, and it was the best. It's like every junket interview I've ever done. No one says anything of substance. If you've ever watched interviews, whenever every Marvel movie comes out and they interview people on the red carpet, does anyone say anything interesting? Never. Because they all want to work. And so I think the on-camera talent, well, they want to work. They want to be diplomatic. And not like I'm digging for dirt, but I wanted something more interesting. And I want to hear the stories I haven't heard. And something I can't confirm this 100%. I got the feeling that people involved in the new G4 were told not to talk to me.
Oh, wow.
I have no direct proof. All I know is everyone involved in the new G4 wouldn't talk to me. That's the only proof I have is that.
Chris, you're 100% right that's an assumption that is probably true, because like anyone knows, if you want to work, you don't go badmouth the people or say anything juicy about the people that originally paid you or got you the job.
So look, it's a legit criticism to say why, but Kevin and Olivia are in the movie, like things that they said
about
G4 in the film. So it seems like they're a part of it. And also, like, just from my experience of interviewing celebrities, they're the least interesting people to interview. Now, the person I really would still like to talk to Kevin, even now, I don't care.
Well, even though you didn't have them, live interviews, it felt like the way the movie is laid out, it feels like they were interviewed because you have so many of their interviews in it. It feels like they're telling the story that they were a part of. So that was really geniusly made. Another genius thing that happened was really bringing Zach in to, he has the soundtrack, obviously, and he's come in and what made you, I mean, I know he's musically inclined, but what was the Oedipus? What was the idea to bring him in? Because he breaks up the documentary perfectly and gives us ideas to forward the story. What was your thinking with that? Because it's really fantastic.
I'm going to set up Zach and then he can speak from there. But from the very beginning, even in the early stages of planning the outline for this doc, it was always like, and Zach Selwyn will have songs. But my idea was Zach would be the Greek chorus for the movie, kind of telling the boring parts of the story, because there are many different ways to convey information, like the acquisition of Tech TV by G4 and that merger. Zach wrote a song about the merger. So I listed I think it was 10 or 12 different, these are things that are kind of boring information that would be funny or interesting if they were conveyed with a song. And then I just said, Zach, here are the subjects. You write something. I've seen Zach in action. I have seen him off the top of his head. He can write a song. It all rhymes. It's like country rap. I don't know how he does it. And also Zach is super easy and fun to work with.
This also goes back to South by Southwest in 2004. In 2003, I had shot a film called Dead and Breakfast, which Chris was a big fan of. And in that movie, it's a zombie movie. Jeffrey Dean Morgan's in it, who's probably the biggest star out of it. But I did the Greek chorus as that same character we're doing in this movie. So you can see my career's come a long way in 20 years. But I remember when Chris, you approached me at South by Southwest, and you're like, dude, that was incredible. What the hell was that? And then all these years later, I think maybe in your subconscious, you're like, we got to do that for this doc.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's it was just a way to, because this could have been a boring documentary. I've seen other people attempt to make a documentary about G4 and Tech TV, and it gets a little way too into the weeds. I wanted to cover that, and it's a little slow going at the beginning, and then it picks up. But once you get to sort of the secret origin of Kevin and Olivia and how they both got on the show, and that I wanted to kind of tell the story them being the thread, because that was the heyday and the best part. Once it got to Kevin and Olivia, 2007, I looked around because G4 launched on April 24th, 2002. It wasn't G4 on day one. It took a while, They made a whole movie about how Batman became Batman. It's Batman Begins. It's not overnight. It's not I shall become a bat. There's there's more to it. So it was 5 years later. I looked around. I'm like, oh my God, I'm getting recognized at Trader Joe's. People actually like and remember the TV show that I'm on. It's a vibe. This is before nerd culture was cool. I would say that sort of it was in parallel with nerd culture becoming mainstream. And I don't know, it was just, it was kind of this magical, not to be repeated time. And so many people came through those doors. People actively lobbied to be on the show. And I mentioned earlier this guy named Gavin Purcell.
Yes.
As Zach goes into his house,
I love
getting
this. Show us
set
the
up
house.
in the office. We shot at his house, actually. The scene where I knock on his door, that's Zach's door.
Oh, nice.
Here, I have that. You want to see it?
There you go.
Oh, yeah. Show the
okay.
scene real quick, Brian.
There you go.
Hey, man. So, Chris, how you doing, man? Oh, God, your hair hasn't changed at all. Dude, that's ridiculous.
Look, man, I really need a favor.
Oh, you're here to interview me for the doc. Yes, I knew you'd come by. I'm in. Let's do it.
Actually, no.
So, well, no?
No.
Okay. So what's up?
I could really use some songs. Yeah, all right.
Later.
That's such a great
So-
scene.
No? Wait, no.
Yeah, so actually, Jimmy Fallon was a fan of Attack of the Show. he not only came on to be a guest, I remember meeting him like in the makeup chair, and he's like, I said, "Oh man, I'm such a great fan, love you on SNL." And he's like, he looks at me and he goes, "I'm a fan of you." And I nearly lost it. And we talked about like DVDs and whatnot. And so he ends up being like a guest on Attack of the Show. He ended up poaching Gavin Purcell, the executive producer of Attack of the Show. He poached him to produce the Jimmy Fallon show with Lorne Michaels' production company, which was really interesting. So he was like, but it was interesting because like to find out that like people like Jim Cameron wanted to be on Attack of the Show because he understood the demographic of the show. Like it started out that they literally at the very beginning in 2005, nobody knew anybody. And I got people like Kevin Smith, Morgan Spurlock. I was just literally going through my Rolodex. Yes, back then I had a Rolodex in 2005. And I was helping them book talent because they knew no celebrities, right? And then suddenly, like a couple years later, G4 and Attack of the Show are being actively, pitched big people to be on the show. It was crazy.
Amazing. So Zach, you're all set up there at the house now. So how did you come up with these songs, man? I mean, I got to tell you, it's. Did you guys do it together? Was it just something in your idea? Did Chris feed you like keywords? Are you like the AI chat GPT? What do we got going on?
Zach GPT. Zach GPT. Chris absolutely wrote me an email and said, "Hey, these are the moments I think that would really benefit from a song. Something about this merger between Tech TV and G4. Something about Kevin leaving the show. Something about Olivia leaving the show and the Esquire network." And then he said, and then
it's so like you never know what's going to happen with Zach.
But I did send him like the rough assembly we had of the movie, so he kind of knew what was going to be at the beginning and the end of where he would fit, and it would literally be like a black, screen that just said Zach's song here, Zach's song goes here. So he got to kind of see.
About that.
Oh, no worries. Just like a rough assembly of the movie, and then like Zach kind of knew in context like where it would fit, and. I don't know. It was so much fun. All of that stuff with Zach was shot in one day, including that scene. And we went all over Hollywood. And the funny thing was, do you remember, Zach? Pride was happening then. So we went we'll shoot in Hollywood. And we're watching guys walk down Hollywood, basically butt naked with like wearing jock straps. And
should have shot that.
Dude.
Can't do that no more.
Well, that's the best thing. Chris had this idea for a song that's like about how you can't do the things we used to do on TV anymore, and I was like, well, that's a great idea for a song. So that one became the real focus of what Chris wanted to do, and that's obviously a standout, I think, for both of us. And then we went to the Pride Parade. We were like, why is there no parking up here? Next thing you know, we're in the middle of like thongs and rainbow flags, and we're singing the Jon Favreau song, and people are just walking by us, and I'm like, what is going on here? That was a heck of a day.
It's fantastic. Rob, I want to get you guys in here. I'm sorry, you guys. So I know that you and Chris go back a long ways. Now, do you remember all the stuff going on with Attack of the Show during that time?
Chris actually got me on Attack of the Show once. I had self-published a comic book called Living in Infamy that was written by Derek Hughes and Ben Rabb, who are now television producers. And he had me come on, got me on to promote the comic. And it was, it was interesting because it was such a raucous environment, and when I went in there, I was trying to be all like serious, like, here I am representing my comic book. And it was not like that. And it was, everybody watched G4. G4 was the equivalent of what YouTube now. It's just YouTube has 10,000 channels. G4 was the only place to go. And, what's really interesting about G4 was there was that kind of that spirit, that anarchic spirit of what was going on there, that anything went for a laugh. But at the same time, it was understood by the audience what kind of a show it was. Like, I don't think that people who watched would get offended. It was all funny. And it was all, how could people push the envelope? Everything, like even DVD Tuesday, I would tune in every week to watch. And, Chris didn't take it as, well, now it's the sacrosanct segment of the show where we're going to talk about cinema history and what's been released. It wasn't like that. It was sort of celebratory and it was fun, but we all kind of understood. And it was weird. To me, G4 was sort of an offshoot of a magazine that Chris had founded with Mark Altman. that was published by Larry Flint, which was, and if you thought about Chris's background, I mean, coming out of Film Threat magazine, the whole attitude that he pioneered with Film Threat and the Film Threat Video Guide and those offshoots they brought to Sci-Fi Universe magazine, and that was almost a decade before Sci-Fi Universe was what, 94, 93, 94. So it was an interesting offshoot of I thought where nerd culture was going. It had video games and it had all these things that didn't really exist, and it was a great distillation of nerd culture. And yet it still was bawdy, and it still had a lot of inappropriate humor, which, by the way, nerds today just pretend they don't have. Which they really do have. And we're as puerile as the next people, but it's so strange that everybody has decided that, oh no, we that every kind of comedy, look, comedy exists at the expense of all of us. That's the point of it. You know, it's that human folly can be laughed at and learned from at the same time. And that has been completely forgotten today. And I think that G4 had that puckish spirit about it.
I think that's really well said.
Love it.
I don't know where that's come from, but
sorry guys, I'm so sorry. I told you I had to jump on this 2:30. If I can get off of it early, I'll come back. But
yeah, just
come on back.
Much love. I will.
Okay,
Come on back now, Zach.
See ya.
No problem,
All
brother.
right.
Well, I'll tell a funny story about Zach. There are things that like you look at in the doc, like that song, "You Can't Do That No More." From the beginning, that sort of came from as we were doing, you know, when things got like shut down and the pandemic happened. I'm like, well, we're still going to work on the doc, but what we're going to do is we're going to build a library. So we built a library of like hundreds of hours of footage and broke it down by category, like best of Kevin, best of Olivia, and we had the folder that had the most stuff in terms of just like, you know, gigabytes of content was a folder called "You Can't Do That." And it was all things like literally you can't do that anymore. Like, and that's even the song came from like literally the name of a folder that we had of media, like you know, like a song like "You Can't Do That, you can't do that no more," like a song like that. And then Zach even had me list some of the things, and it's like I just listed things from the show and he turned it into lyrics. It's so great. That ended up being like reprised. That song kind of comes in the middle of the movie, and then it's reprised in the credits in a longer version with a couple more verses. But that was really like a thread that, because it concerns me. I look at like, you know, that bizarre idea, and Rob and I talk about stuff like this all the time, like the idea of presentism, where you're judging the past by how we view our current day. And this is recent history. We're talking about stuff on Attack of the Show with like, yes, it was inappropriate and blue humor. And trust me, there was just as much of it off camera as on. I used to say, in fact, when I would go on a field shoot with a producer, and I truly believe this, I said, it's my job to make your job easy. So whatever we're doing, I'm the on-camera talent. I want to make it easy. Let's have fun. We would joke around. We'd goof on each other. Like, it never felt like work. We'd do South by Southwest or, you know, E3 or other events, the Las Vegas Film Festival. And I said to the producers and the field crew, I'd say, look, I'll do anything except for anal. And now I realize if I made that joke on a set, now, I would be sent to the human resources department. I'm making a joke that I would go. What annoys me now is you'll even see this in stand-up comedy specials on Netflix. People explaining this is a joke on a comedy show. What I'm about to tell you is a joke because most people these days are stupid, or the stupid people have loud voices. They speak up very loudly. I'm kind of over it and sick of it. And I feel like to kowtow to these voices, this minority of people who fake act offended, get over it. Get over it. You're going to be okay. But we're not going to bend the bell curve of to make culture more stupid because of you. I'm done. I'm done tolerating these people. And partially making this doc is to show, hey, this is recent pop culture history.
Right. It's not that old.
It's very recent pop culture
that,
history.
or I'm really old because I watched it when I was like 22. Okay.
And by the way, you can even look on TikTok, the number of people coming after Olivia for jokes that she wrote in her book that are obviously jokes. You're acting offended because she's talking about, I don't know, fat people, fatties. She's obviously kidding.
Right.
She wrote this like, it's like part autobiography, but part like her telling stories of Hollywood, but it's like part true, like the stuff with her mom and her background and whatnot. But then stuff is obviously like, to me, humor is always a sign of intelligence because it requires you to connect dots of things that are unconnected, and you laugh because of truth. And the fact that we can't do that as openly as we used to that I say, F that. Don't bow to those people. They'll catch up. They'll get over it, or they'll find something else to be upset about.
Chris,
so
say it right.
Let them
Say
do
it right.
that.
Don't say that. Say it right, bro.
I got an idea.
Yeah,
so
fuck that.
There we go.
Fuck that.
Hit it, baby.
Well, also, Chris, I think that there is a new way for people to feel better about themselves, and it's an easy way, which is to be a performance activist. Like, it's okay. Like, I'm going to go, anybody who says anything that I deem at all mean or something, I'm going to go after that person so I can show how aware I am of other people's feelings. And it has become a tonic for them to believe, now I feel better about myself, because it's not even real activism. They're just doing it as a performative way to make themselves feel better. And the thing is, that's dangerous because they don't know what they're losing by doing it.
Yeah.
By getting rid of comedy, by going after people that are telling jokes, there is a valuable valve in society that we need to be self-reflexive. And if you're going to take comedy away, you're going to take that valve away, then everybody's going to drown in their self-important bullshit. And therein lies the destruction of civilization. You can be a performance activist right off the fucking cliff because you're not taking human nature into consideration.
No, that's a good point. Yeah.
And everybody wants to normalize everything. Like, what I find it so strange is everybody wants to normalize any kind of bad behavior or any kind of, don't make yourself better. Don't be fat phobic or whatever. But, what about the ideas of health? I understand there are people that have a hard time losing weight, but Olivia Munn, if she's making fun of somebody, like, would Chris Farley be still allowed to be comedic? Would John
Fat
Candy
guy in a little coat.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, do you think those guys didn't know that they weren't the healthiest people in the world? What killed them? Why aren't they around anymore? Their appetites of many different things killed them.
Heart attacks and stuff. Yeah.
And I mean, but now we can't be honest. I mean, this is what's happened to our society. Performance activism has made us all, not all of us, but have made us dishonest people, where we're going to go and tell on someone else rather than think about and examine. And comedy is inherently honest. And the thing is, we know it's honest, which is why we laugh at it. Comedy says the things that we can't say but need to be said.
Ooh, well said. Yeah, I was thinking of the idea of community. So, think of it this way. So we've always based on, as human beings, we kind of base what we agree on or what we believe on the community that's near us, right? So 10 years, the internet really was only available to people for about 10 years before G4 came onto TV, and you had all these wild things. And your community kind of dictates to you what's acceptable or not acceptable, right? So do you think that as the internet has continued to grow and as we've as human beings have reached out to other groups saying this is what's right, this is what's wrong, do you think that's what's put us into this kind of weird corner that we're in, where we can't do those things anymore?
Well, I think it's mainly listening to stupid people. I think we need to do that less. We need to what is the phrase? Just suffering fools. I think that we're just. I've gotten to the point where. And look, I'm very much an all ships rise. Let's all hang together. And Rob, you've been going to San Diego Comic-Con as long as I have. Half the fun of Comic-Con is sitting in the hotel bar at the Marriott Marina. We're all sort of huddled up in a corner and we're arguing and debating. I don't give a shit where your position is. Let's hear you make that argument.
Yeah,
I've had my mind changed, and also like drink. This was when we've been going to San Diego Comic-Con so long. Do you remember, Rob, in the 90s when downtown the gas lamp was incredibly dangerous? There were drug addicts and prostitutes, and so we would stay at the hotel bar as a way because there was really nowhere to go. Now the gas lamp, it's kind of hip, kind of like fell back a little bit because of the pandemic stuff, but man, like I love those conversations. Do you remember the year that we all got kicked out of the pool area at the Marriott and Mark Altman had to fit? And it was, oh man, they're just legendary stories that Rob and I could tell from hanging out at the pool, because the cool thing about the pool, pro tip, the pool at the Marriott Marina Hotel on Saturdays is where all the bored housewives and actresses, or the bored wives of the producers that are doing panels, the hottest women you will ever see are at the pool at the Marriott on that Saturday, because they're like, I'm not going to your nerd convention. Go do your dumb comic book panel or your TV producing panel or movie panel, whatever it is. I'm going to stick by the pool. And Rob and I, where were he and I? He and I were at the pool on Saturday.
Yeah, there's an alternate history to be written specifically about the Marriott Marina.
Oh my God! Do you remember when Dan Weber? Remember this? Dan Weber got a sunburn on the bottom of his feet. A friend of ours who was a writer on Futurama. He got a sunburn on the bottom of his feet because he fell asleep by that pool. Dude, we could go on and tell stories. Love it.
Well, and I think that's what G4 kind of encompassed. What I really liked about your documentary, one, it's just wildly entertaining. Like, even if when I was watching it in Vegas, I was looking at it from the perspective of, if you didn't know, because one of the things I love about all the documentaries we're now seeing all over the place is there's so many times I watch a documentary about something I didn't know anything about, and I'm captivated by it. I think your documentary really, if you didn't see G4, didn't know anything about G4, I think your documentary immediately sucks, from a filmmaking perspective, immediately sucks the viewer in, and it really does a good job of explaining what G4 is, and as the way you kind of have structured it. And I didn't see the whole thing on the big screen, but watching it, I've subsequently watched the whole documentary, and then you sort of get into the philosophy of it, and you did a great job of laying out what is G4, who was involved, why were they involved, and then you kind of move in and start asking other questions. And I think the questions that you're posing in the documentary also apply to all of fandom now, because this weird, there are fans that love, say, Star Trek, that hate their fellow Star Trek pundits or whatever, and they're like, I watch all different pundits, but I find there's a lot of people that don't watch me, and that's fine, but it's really interesting. I think that there's a schism between the age of fans, when they grew up, and why they're on YouTube in the first place, and it's really, really interesting, and you get into that a little bit in your documentary.
Yeah, well, that was my point.
I watched it with a friend of mine, who was like, he's like 25 years old. He's my nephew, and I turned it on again, and I'm like, this is what I was watching when I was your age, before there was YouTube, and we watched the entire thing, and he was like, okay, so where can I go and stream this right now?
That's cool.
Where can I watch Attack of the Show? And I'm like, you can't.
I mean, well, I'm glad you noticed. I appreciate it, because that was by design. Part of it was to bring us up to speed. Like, how did we get in this very short period from nerd culture? Because when G4 started, nerd culture was not cool, and it wasn't mainstream. It was still like, here's my long boxes. I'm just going to not tell everybody that I have 6 long boxes of comics or whatever, and all my collectibles, a room I'm surrounded by them right now. But it tracked like nerd culture becoming mainstream, and then suddenly post G4 nerd culture, there was the divide. And you can, if you look at what is that, The Social Dilemma, which is the documentary that's on Netflix, great documentary.
Great documentary.
Great doc. And they started using algorithms in 2012. That's when they're like, hey, maybe we can get people to spend more time on the app. And of course, spending more time on the app means make someone angry about something. And now I think there's a whole generation of kids who are addicted to social media, mainly because they're addicted to a dopamine rush that comes with being angry by something they saw. So they're looking for something to be angry about. This is incredibly unhealthy. I think we're going to learn that for our mental health, that social media is worse for us than cigarettes. It's terrible. So I just feel bad, just as a father to a son and a daughter who missed it. They were just, and neither of them, I'm so grateful, neither of them care much about social media. They're on Instagram, kind of doing fun stuff, but nothing serious. It's not part of their jobs or whatever. But I've seen this divide happen in nerd culture. Who cares whether you love or hate The Last Jedi? We can have the debate, and that's fine. No, it's fine. I mean, those are fun debates to have. I live for those debates. I have a show now that I'm doing called Critics Court. I think you're going to be on it, Rob.
Yeah.
That's going to be a fun show, because partially my not so secret agenda with that show is to bring people together who don't normally talk to each other off of social media to actually debate and talk to each other, to really prove your case to me. Prove this case, prove your argument. Let's go. Because we used to do that all the time. Rob, I remember getting in knockdown dragouts. You know what we would do? Get another round of drinks. I was never mad at you for anything that we disagreed. We just disagreed. And then you know what we did?
I'm mad at you, though. That essay you wrote about Space 1999.
Well, that's true. I got us in a lot of trouble. I got us banned from Paramount for an essay I wrote about Deep Space Nine back in like the 90s. Yeah, that was bad.
I want to see that essay now.
But it was, I think that what's fun though is growing up, going to conventions, even in the 80s and even earlier, nerd debate was the reason you went to conventions, and you would get into these. I mean, I remember when I went to Worldcon in '84. I was in high school. I took saved all summer, took a 2-week road trip, went to San Francisco and Palm Springs, and wound up in Anaheim at the Anaheim Convention Center, '84. And I remember getting into a very, very spirited conversation, and I was still in high school with a bunch of older people about the meaning of Patrick McGowan's The Prisoner for like 4 hours. And we weren't even, we were in a hotel, in the one floor of the hotel, like in the hotel. We weren't even in the bar, and we were outside of an elevator. And as we're having this debate, at the end of this debate, Carrie O'Quinn, publisher of Starlog magazine, saunters up, and then we started having a conversation about Ayn Rand and the Fountainhead, and I had recently read Anthem, and then he wrote about it in his From the Bridge column in Starlog. He didn't remember my name, but he remembered the conversation. I was having a debate with this kid. I mean, that was what science fiction conventions were all about, and what was so great was you had to know your shit. Like when you went, you couldn't be some casual fan that couldn't drop the proper terminology because you would get roasted, and that was what made it fun. And
Is that part of what the problem is, Rob, though? That, the communities that we used to have, so those were face-to-face conversations, and to some degree, these are face-to-face conversations we're having now. So over the internet, it's a lot of it is faceless. It's faceless, divided people. What do you think about that?
Well, I think too, though, that here's the difference. In the 80s, and even to a certain extent in the 90s, all of this wasn't mainstream yet. And what I've talked about is I call my audience on my YouTube channel the post-geek singularity. And people ask what that means. And it's kind of a nonsensical play on the idea of Ray Kurzweil's idea of the coming singularity when AI become sentient and self-aware. Well, that's kind of what I think happened to geek culture. It exploded because so much of it, like a star itself, it started with things like Star Wars, and it continued to go mainstream in the 80s. And when video games rose and girls could start playing games and more anime came in from Japan, it brought in the female audience. Comic books like Emily the Strange or Death, Neil Gaiman's Death. So then the female audience came in, and then all of these interests were not so concentrated. They had a spectrum of people in terms of their interest level. Some people were deep into it, but then you had role-playing games. All this stuff was suddenly, it diversified geek interests, which caused the geek singularity. And you really saw it at the San Diego Comic-Con. From where it started, I mean, I went to my first Comic-Con in '88 when I first moved to LA, and to see where it is now, it's an entirely When I first went, there were still old sweaty dudes going through long boxes. The late great John Schnepp would call us all sweaties. Well, that's how we started. Oh, look at this! It's 260. It's X-Men 266. It's the first appearance of Gambit in perfect shape. It's only $3. I'll take this, sir. I mean, that's what we were like. I was like that.
And the sweaty little comic book shop.
My first Comic-Con, 89, and then we got to know each other in the 90s. But what's funny about Comic-Con, it was always diverse. It was all nerds, but it was always diverse because nobody cared. If you like nerd stuff, but the only way it wasn't diverse was women, because
there were none.
There were no. If you saw a woman at San Diego Comic-Con, it was like a Bigfoot sighting. It was like something that was rare. It wasn't until the early 2000s more and more women started to go. Like I brought my kids. They were young then. Like brought them there, and
that was another thing. Parents were bringing their kids now.
Yeah,
the old school geeks. The Star Wars generation had children and
right.
started bringing, and the Star Wars generation were all the people that started with the Atari 2600, and were people in their mid 50s with gaming consoles started with an Atari 2600. It became part of our lives, and as gaming console systems became more and more sophisticated, and you had the rise of anime. I mean, I remember, Chris, there was like a 5-year period we'd go to the Masquerade and applaud all the teams of Sailor Moon girls. Like all these girls would come out dressed as Sailor, and whenever they would come up, like we as we were getting older, we're sitting in the back, but they take, there's sometimes you get like 30 girls on stage that were all dressed as all the different Sailor Moon characters, and we're all like, yes. Yes.
Oh my God, Rob, do you remember? First of all, we all purposely sat in the back and snuck in drinks. So we're all drinking, sitting in the back because we didn't want to get kicked out. We were loud to the point where people around us are like, "Hey, you guys, your group!" And everyone's just trying to make each other laugh. But the best year, this is in the late '90s, when someone came out with Mickey Mouse gloved hands, dressed as the number 42. That was the whole costume.
Oh, yeah.
That was it. Do you remember? And of course, we knew what that meant from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And we were just all 42 chant. Those were the old days of San Diego Comic-Con just being like a free-for-all, crazy, fun nonsense. But and then it's turned into, I don't know. I kind of look at it now and I'm like, there are people that have tried to cancel me for things I said on panels. I said some crazy wild thing, but everybody said crazy wild stuff. We were always trying to one up each other. And because we all are very familiar, it's like, we can make fun of each other. You can make fun of me. I don't care. And it's the environment's changed now at Comic-Con. It's changed in ways where it's not as fun. I think kind of the fun has been a little sucked out. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Rob, but that's kind of what I was trying to show in the doc was here's this sort of Wild West of what Comic-Con was, Wild West of doing a nerd show and nerds, a lot of nerds do have raunchy senses of humor. I mean, there's a reason, look back at a lot of old sci-fi. Oh, there you go. Oh my.
Yeah, Rebecca Spade. What's
Super
good?
chat from Rebecca Spade. Oh my.
There you go, man.
What is
Zach
that? Wow.
is a bit of a daddy. Welcome back, Zach.
Welcome back. Nice to be here.
Now you got to wink at the camera.
Sorry.
Hey, good.
Only dads.
Only dad website.
Only
Thank
dads.
you, Rebecca.
So, Chris, I think what you're saying is, don't you think Attack of the Show is kind of responsible for kind of turning Comic-Con into what it is now? I mean, the level of, that was the beginning, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. I mean, I went to Comic-Con because I tell the story in the doc real quick. I said that I needed time off from DV Tuesday. I can't do it. I wanted to drive down on Tuesday. They said, no, you have to record it. I said, I'm going to this thing called Comic-Con. And the producer, which was Gavin Purcell, said, what's that? A convention for comedians? Because he literally thought it was Comic Con for comedians. I said, no, it's a pop culture convention. I don't know why are you not going there? So I went there. He took a crew down in 2005, July 2005 with Kevin. It's like, hey, this is pretty cool. So then it just grew and grew. So in a way, I kind of feel somewhat responsible because even the people working at G4 then didn't know what San Diego Comic-Con was, even though I'd been going there since 89. They didn't know, but it wasn't what it grew into. By 2007, that was the first year I went, this might be getting too big. And then it got like, so like, because you know, Rob, you could literally like have no badge, no hotel booked, drive down, talk your way into getting a badge with a fake business card, get a room at any hotel, which was reasonably priced. Now there's a hotel lottery. You're lucky to get a 4-day badge.
Right.
And
it's all your fault, Chris. It's all your fault. You started this.
I don't know if it's my, I mean, it just becomes like any sort of event that starts like, and look, by the way, San Diego Comic-Con is an all volunteer group, mostly volunteer. There's a small number of people that work year round. Same thing with Sundance, the Sundance Film Festival. And I know, Zach, you've been to Sundance and South by Southwest film festivals. They start as this small thing started by a bunch of artists that want to put on a thing mainly to like get their friends involved. This is literally how it starts. We'll give you a table. We'll do this. We'll show your movie, whatever. Then it gets and it grows and it becomes too corporate, becomes too big, and corporate interests get involved. And then, well, we've got this sponsor. Well, NBC is sponsoring this. And then we have the Sci-Fi Channel is sponsoring our Masquerade Ball now, and they don't want this. And this is what's happened to everything.
Yeah, Chris, you know what's funny?
It happens to everything at every level. When it becomes too corporate, and I'm at the point now where I will not work for a company that has a human resources department because I don't want to deal with that shit.
Yeah, Chris,
Film is a small business, and like, you know.
When Comic-Con first started, it's funny because the name of this show on our Monday show is Raw Rant. We literally started our podcast Raw Rant. It was rawrant.com. And it was a podcast with a news website, articles, and we did like an audio show every week for the purpose of getting passes,
getting into Comic-Con,
free Comic-Con.
That was the whole point. Yeah.
We started the podcast, and we did it for like 3 or 4 months with articles every month, just so we can give the information and get our free passes every year. That's the reason we started this, was to get into Comic-Con for free.
Well, like you said, we've been doing this panel at Comic-Con called the Starship Smackdown for 20 years, and it's gotten to the point where the getting, like, I used to get press badges. I would get people press badge, or not press badges, but badges to get in. Now I don't even have my own credentials. I just got to the point where I was tired of sending in all like, are you still a professional? I'm like, are you kidding me? I've been doing a panel for you. NPR covered our panel. Neil deGrasse Tyson came to our panel one year. And why is it that every year I have to once again prove myself to you guys over and over and over and over again? I mean, I still do it, but I think the last time I ever made sure that I had my credentials was in 2019, pre-pandemic. And it was just like, why is it that every 3 years do I have to prove myself to you again? Here's the animated series I worked on for Netflix. Here's the movie that I have currently streaming on Amazon and Peacock. I mean, I understand that. I guess the burden of proof is mine.
Get off my lawn!
Yeah, I mean, it'd be like eventually. I mean, I've been going to Comic-Con since 1989. I've had a professional badge since '94. Aren't you going to ever?
When you get older, man, like no matter what you've proven in the past, there's a whole new.
I know
people who are like, "Who are you?"
It's true, and I don't mind that. I don't mind that. But at least at Comic-Con, when you actually have been an active participant in their programming, I don't know, for 29 years. Every year, maybe they'll. When do you get into the Masters? Like the golf tournament. When do you ever get to be that way?
Well,
I mean,
real quick, Rob. I would love to do a documentary about Starship Smackdown. I have a way of doing it that I think would be interesting. I think it'd make a really good documentary, and I love it. But yeah, it's definitely changed. You definitely want, like, you got to bring in like new blood and new fans and whatnot, right? But an appreciation for what happened and how we kind of got here, I think is necessary. So, I think I know what you're about to show. Oh no,
we got to show how we get to Comic-Con.
No!
This is from the Attack of the Doc, guys.
Oh my God.
Look how
Look
young
at
we
young
were.
Chris
You should
Gore
have thought about that before you left, Chris.
and
Listen,
Zach.
we're halfway to Comic-Con. Just hold it. You can pee when we get there. You'll be fine. Everybody's fine.
Avengers Assemble, bitch! Yeah!
What does that mean?
Avengers Assemble!
All right, I don't know what that means. And
Avengers Assemble!
Yeah, that's great. You don't need to raise this roof, though.
No, but I'm like hulking out. It's our nerd cry.
But don't hulk out in the car. Just don't hit the roof. Don't test me!
Hey, Blair, you think I could read one of your comics? You have like 20 boxes back here.
Actually, those are my Film Threat magazines.
Then where the are my comics?
Don't worry, I put them on the roof.
What?
No, Blair, no. In the car. In the car. You're fine.
Comics.
Your comics are fine. Everybody's fine.
Anybody want to hear some humorous country rock twang?
No, Zach, no. Zach, there will be no humorous country rock twang while I'm driving, Zach. Thank you, though.
You know what?
Test me on this.
Go host Arena. Okay, pal?
Excuse me, sir. Do you have any Grey Poupon? Anywho, I'm just gonna take my sweet invisible jet and fight Cheetah. Rape Steve Trevor.
Rape
So, just see you dorkos later.
Hey, guys. I don't have to pee anymore.
Oh man, that was so great.
Here's what's funny about that segment. She predicted the plot of Wonder Woman 84.
I'm gonna take my invisible jet. I'm gonna fight Cheetah and rape Steve Trevor. That was like 15. Oh my god, that's amazing.
That all that happened in Wonder Woman 84. It's so funny.
That's
look,
not
I
hyperbole.
was
That
gonna
happened.
say, Attack of the Show was definitely ahead of its time and kind of tracked, parallel with geek culture becoming mainstream. But if anything, Free Enterprise, and it reminded, because I hadn't seen Free Enterprise in years. I have a very bit part in Free Enterprise in the background of a comic store scene. That Free Enterprise was way ahead of its time. Way ahead of its time, predicting that like geek culture would become mainstream even before that awful CBS show, which I
still, people are still saying, they ripped you off. And I'm like, oh, I don't know about that. But
yeah, but it's just like, but your movie was so far ahead of its time, but it was really about our friend group at the time because you are in it. Rob is in it. That whole thing of like playing basketball and everyone.
Everybody.
I was there.
Yeah, everybody's in it. Like
we were all terrible.
What's funny is that like Phil Lamar is playing Eric Wallace, and the real Eric Wallace has been the showrunner of The Flash for the last couple of seasons.
Yeah.
So, and Dan Weber, who Jonathan Slavin plays, went up, like you brought him up earlier. They're all of the people that are in that movie. Harry and Gabrielle Stanton is a huge writer on television still. And it was just all, what was really interesting too about Los Angeles, and we didn't capture enough of this in Free Enterprise, but I always equate it to being Devil's Tower in Close Encounters. There was sort of all of these geeks from all around the United States and sometimes around the world heard the clarion call. We were all that Star Wars generation, but we were like the second generation out, where filmmakers from USC like John Singleton and James Gray and Phil Giuano had made their mark, and it was kind of the second generation of filmmakers or people that wanted to work in the entertainment business. And we all found each other, because for as big as LA is, if you were a true nerd that was looking to get into the entertainment business, you all went to the same revival screenings. You all went to the American Cinematheque screenings. When Dario Argento comes to LA and showed all of his movies at the Raleigh Theater across from Paramount, we were all there. Quentin Tarantino, I gave him my ticket to Deep Red because he couldn't buy a ticket, so I gave it to him. I mean, so we all knew one another in various ways. And it was kind of interesting to watch a lot of people. I mean, Chris, you and I have sort of stuck with our independent thing, our independent spirit. I mean, we have never been able to cross over into great, giant commercial success. And in a way, sure, would it be nice to be rich? Sure. But on the other hand, we still have the freedom. Yeah. You have a new documentary out. I have a low budget independent movie streaming, and I might have a new animated series I'm doing. You just never know. And we also can then embrace YouTube. I'm sure there's a lot of people that we know that look down their noses at us going, these fucking guys on YouTube. And it's like, well, I'll tell you, I get paid better on YouTube than I've ever had from making an independent movie. I'll tell you that.
Well, speaking of YouTube, so Chris, you guys have both you and Robert alluded to this earlier, but Attack of the Show was kind of setting the stage for what YouTube is today. So, and you talk about this in the documentary to some degree. Can you just kind of expand on the thought of YouTube's a continuation, sort of?
Well, that was like a theme from the very beginning. I wanted to find out what happened to G4, and I'll tell you what happened to G4. It basically spawned and inspired a generation of people to say, well, I really love comics and I know a lot about this area of comics, whatever arena it is, because the fun thing about geek culture is nobody can know everything. You can know a lot about a certain arenas or spaces, but nobody can know everything. It's just impossible. But
Rob's
that's
pretty
why,
close, but yeah.
But that's why the collective, the group, like in a setting, I don't think I've ever waited in line for anything at Comic-Con where I didn't get to know the people that were kind of around that area, because everyone has something kind of to contribute. I know you say that every show that you do, Rob, like everyone has a story to tell. And I love that. Like everyone kind of has something to contribute. And I think that that's what's cool about nerd culture. But ultimately what I want to do is like, I don't know that G4 really needed to return. When you look at like, unless they were going to do something that was going to be better than what YouTube is doing and different, and they didn't provide that, that's, I think, partially the reason that it failed. You need to have like a certain amount of runway. It really took 5 years for the old G4 to get good, and the new G4 had less than a year, and it was kind of doomed to fail because of YouTube. But I noticed, like, I was watching a lot of YouTube. Why? I still wanted to engage in that conversation. I still wanted to like hear about comics and video games and movies, and you can find kind of your expert, and even those experts kind of have different approaches. So I discovered a lot of different YouTubers, and I thought, well, then, Attack of the Show and G4, that's the legacy, is it inspired a whole generation. I really knew this was happening when this is like maybe 2005. I remember, is it 2005? Someone correct me. When Red Letter Media put out the 70-minute review of episode 1, The Phantom Menace, but they released it in 10-minute parts because the maximum length video you could upload to YouTube at that time was 10 minutes. And I thought, this is so good. These are because I was restrained by the fact that when I did TV Tuesday, it was a 5-minute segment. I could talk. That's why I talk so fast. It was just like, okay, I want to get it done.
My least favorite thing about being on G4 was we would go shoot 4 or 5 hour segments and they would cut them down to 3 minutes. And what was left on that cutting room floor was so good. Like we had some of the funniest stuff ever, that every time I saw the final one, I'm like, what happened to the scene where,
What was the one, Zach? You got to talk about this. Do you remember when you and Kevin went to the MILF bar to try to pick up MILF and cougars?
The great cougar hunt of 2007. Yeah.
The great cougar hunt of 2007. I'm just thinking, when we were looking at the names of the things, you couldn't even, like, if you did that now, it'd be.
Yeah, we talked about this at the screening down in Santa Ana, but there was an episode where Kevin and I took my wedding ring off and we went to this place called like Deviate with an 8 in the title in the Valley. It was known as like a hot cougar bar. And Kevin and I had to do a competition on who would get the most girls' numbers during the night. And we went and had a dinner. We dressed up in suits. And at the end, we all walked home with like 8, 9 numbers or something. And then what happened was whoever was producing it forgot to put up like if you walk in this bar, you will be filmed thing. And 2 of the girls saw the segment and were like, who the F are these guys? Call me a cougar. And they dude, G4. And it was a big lawsuit. I mean, that thing went around. I got more attention for being known as the cougar hunter.
That's your new YouTube channel.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
fine
new
now.
channel.
But I was like, what happened? My friends are calling me from like London and like, dude, what are you doing? Hunting cougars? I was like, I don't know. That was pretty funny. Can't do that no more.
That's true. We want to get a little shout out here from No Money G. Thank you so much for the super chat, No Money G, for $20. Great panel, guys. Can't wait for the Blu-ray of Attack of the Doc. Chris, when's that coming?
Steelbook, Chris. Steelbook, please.
Oddly, I'm working on it now. We were working on extras like last summer. I really want it to be the mic drop on G4. It's like everything you could possibly want on a Blu-ray, multiple commentary tracks. We're doing a music video of Zach's song "Can't Do That No More," and that's going to release to promote the Blu-ray when it comes out in August. We are shipping it to the Kickstarter backers first in July. We'll have copies of it at San Diego Comic-Con, and then it's going to be shipped to anyone who we're going to have it available for pre-order in July. But yeah, it's just there are extras on it. I've never even saw someone attempt. For example, there's going to be a link on the Blu-ray where you can go to Second Life and visit a metaverse version of the recreation of the set of Attack of the Show. We did all that Second Life animation. You can go to it and actually visit it. And then Zach, the soundtrack actually for Attack of the Dock is actually on Spotify. The score by Austin Smith, like 8 or 10 songs by Zach, including 2 songs that were cut from the movie. Like it's pretty. I've never heard of a documentary having a score, a soundtrack, but we decided, music was it was always a big part of it. It was just like, I want an actual score for it. I met this guy, really talented, Austin Smith. And then Zach, it was always in my head, like, oh yeah, and Zach will do the songs. But man, it turned out well beyond my expectations. Because I've seen Zach, having worked with Zach, we'll just be at a bar doing nothing, and he'll like, boom, boom, he just makes up a song based on what the hell is currently happening. He works your name into it, or a drink, says something inappropriate, like, yeah, like, no, but I mean in a good way. Like, oh my God, Zach, just like, I knew from the beginning, like, that had to be a part of it.
Well, it was a beautiful thing when we wrapped our shoot. We went to Jumbo's Clown Room in Hollywood, so that explains it all. And let's just say the place has not changed.
It's exactly.
The beers are a little more expensive now, but
yeah,
fantastic.
$11 Coors Lights now. But no, yeah, we actually did go to Jumbo's Clown Room. It was like an all-day shoot, and then we ended up going to Jumbo's. It was great. Oh, is this the song?
Yeah, let's play the song so people can hear it, so they know what they're going to be. Because after this video,
Yeah,
we want you to go and get the. We want you to go and actually rent this or buy it. So I've seen the premiere. I got to see it at the special screening we had for Free Enterprise and for this in Vegas, and then I've also bought it. So I was not a huge fan of G4. I mean, I saw it sometimes. I was in the military, so I was gone a lot. But watching this has made me like appreciate it so much, and now I'm sad that I missed it, kind of in a way. So it's really been cool. But let's hear the song that Zach came up with, because
let me know if you guys can hear the lyrics.
Oh, you can't hear it. Can't hear it. No audio.
Okay, I knew that was going to happen.
So,
all right.
Yeah, but yeah, the Blu-ray.
That was my big break, guys. That was my big moment. Nothing. Real tech guys over there, huh? There you go.
Well, I blame Brian for all of it. So, but Chris, can you talk a little about the guys who actually helped you make the doc, because they were fans of the show, right?
Here's what's funny. Bobby Schwartz, who is the co-producer with me and also edited the documentary, he's never edited a feature film before. And I'm just like, look, if you can edit a 10-minute video, you can edit a 90-minute movie. So I really kind of pushed him into it. And Walter Areas, our supervising producer, all the other editors, Anthony Ray Bench, Phil Eubanks, Glenn Brown, like, they were all fans of the show. Bobby used to watch Attack of the Show and G4 TV when he was in junior high. And I met him randomly at a bar. He recognized me, and the bartender accidentally gave me 2 drinks. And I'm like, well, give that extra drink to that guy. I didn't know who he was. And Bobby and I became fast friends, just like nerds. When you meet someone who's a nerd or fan of nerd stuff, you're just like, it's very easy to become like fast friends. You find like, oh, we have all these areas of connection. And so, yeah, no, like, it was just weird. So when I say this movie was made by fans for fans, like, I was a fan of the show. I was a fan of Screensavers and X-Play before I was on the show. Then, like, everyone who worked on the production, you had to be a super fan. So when I mentioned, like, and here's the thing, they knew Attack of the Show and G4 better than I did. I felt like Shatner when someone would ask Shatner, like, do you remember that episode from season 2 of the original series? Like, I would mention something like, there was a thing, and they're like, oh, I remember that episode. And so it made it like a shorthand for all of us to just like be able to do things quickly. What I might do is even like take the library that we used to make the doc and just release it on YouTube, because why not? I mean, I'm not going to monetize it. I'll just release it, not on the Film Threat channel, but we created an Attack of the Doc YouTube channel. And I think that we might just release like, the best of Kevin, the best of Olivia. And you could make your own doc if you want.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Why not? No audio.
Let's judge booth babes at Comic-Con. You can't
audio,
do
right?
that no more.
Hey, no, you got it.
Making gay jokes with a fat suit on. You can't do that no more. MySpace Girl of the Week. You can't do that no more. Making fun of someone for being a geek. I said you can't do that no more. No more bust this boob jokes being unaware. And don't even talk about the pedo bear. We did it once, but that was before. You can't do that no more. No, sir. Maxim bikini shoots and pie diving. Can't do that no more. Talk Eiffel Tower and then high-fiving. You can't do that no more. Using motorboating as a verb. You can't do that no more. Going on camera smoking herb. You can't do that. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Like way more. Hey, put a server up your ass. What nerve saying now your ass has been served. We did it once, but now no more. You can't do that no more. What else? Shooting producers with BB guns. Can't do that no more. Kevin spiked a baby doll just for fun. You can't do that no more. Licking next-gen consoles. You can't do that no more. Watching new Attack of the Show. You can't do that no more. Bust his boo jokes being unaware. And don't even talk about that pedo bear. We did it once, but that was before. You can't do that no more. No, you can't do that no more. Said we did it once, but that was before. You can't do that no more.
Dude, I remember the pedo bear. It was so funny.
That should be the new theme song for imagination connoisseurs everywhere.
Oh, so great.
It's a great cautionary tale, man. What a great song, Zach.
Thanks, man.
Wow.
Dude, when Zach sent that to us, we were just listening to it over and over, laughing our asses off. The extended cut of that is just so. I'm like, when he said it, I'm like, we have to put that in the doc. Like, we can't. There's the short version that's kind of in the middle, the kind of about that sequence, and then it's like, nope, that's going over the credits. Zach, you just like knocked it out of the park. Like,
well, that's another thing that I think people forget is like you listen to that song. That's a really great. I mean, your lyrics are great. The meaning is great. We now live in a world where there's all of these talented people in the nerd space. I like to call them imagination connoisseurs that we have access to. I mean, there's a bunch of incredibly talented multi-hyphenates. You know, you can do stand-up comedy, Zach. You can be on a show. You can write music. And the great thing about call it all over the nerd culture is now we have access to all of this great stuff. Imagine what a G4 could have been that wasn't corporately created with corporate spin. A new G4 could have been explosively exciting today. But the people that made it for the wrong reason.
Right. So is that why? So when G4 came back, and this is a great segue. Thank you, Robert. Because when G4 came back, is it because we can't do that no more? Is that why it didn't work?
Well,
sorry.
No, I was going to say, I watched the very first episode of that, and Kevin Pereira actually says that. Like, we cannot go into the list of things we can't do anymore here. Or what we did wrong. It would take too long.
What we did wrong was the mistake. You didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, that's the thing that I disagree with. That, and then even when they were going through the hiring process and they were looking for new hosts and they're saying, well, tell me why Batman should be canceled. Well, Batman shouldn't. We're all fans of Batman. If you're a nerd, maybe you like Batman to a certain degree. Maybe he's not your favorite superhero. He's certainly the two number one superheroes in terms of licensing. Our Spider-Man is number one and number two is Batman. It's right. Those characters are wildly popular and have survived decades. And the fact that like G4 would turn their back on the past, and it was disconcerting that this was the attitude at the beginning. And I don't know even I don't know where that directive came from, but I think it was a colossal mistake. You wouldn't have the new G4 without the old G4 because literally you were using the brand name to bring it back. So then why did you even use it? Make a new network, call it something else, call it G3. I don't know. But it's with anything, like when you turn your back on the legacy that got you here, I'm looking at you, Star Wars. I think that's a mistake. I think it's a huge mistake. So from the beginning, I think the project may have been doomed because of that.
Well, talk about turning your back on artistry. Starting in 2024, films must meet specific diversity requirements in order to be eligible for the Best Picture award. The new guidelines include requirements like at least one actor from an underrepresented racial or ethnic group being in a significant role, or the story must center on women, LGBTQ people, a racial group, or disabled people. Movie legend Richard Dreyfuss said the new requirements make him vomit. He said, "No one should be telling me as an artist that I have to give in to the latest, most current idea of what morality is." Is Richard right? And what do you guys think about Hollywood's motives here?
100% right. I think that it's when I heard that, I thought this is a terrible mistake. And I think here's what's going to happen. 100% going to happen. There is going to be a great film made by a prominent filmmaker, and because it doesn't tick off all of these rules exactly, it will not be nominated for an Oscar, even though everyone agrees that it should. And if anyone in Hollywood has some balls, they will make a great movie with the intention that it should be Oscar nominated, and they should intentionally ignore this bullshit. This is
Oscar nominated, Chris. I agree with you, but dude, someone's gonna have to do like the not another teen movie version called woke movie.
right.
Like you're not another independent film. It'll just be woke movie where it's just the most ridiculous casting ever. I mean, it could go. That could be really funny.
How does a movie like Braveheart get made? I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully, I would hope that. Look, I would say if you were just interested in, I've always said on my channel to promote new voices is always important, and I use an example of Spike Lee's first feature, She's Gotta Have It, which I was knocked out by She's Gotta Have It. It's about a black woman in Brooklyn, shot in black and white, who has multiple boyfriends. Please, baby, baby, please, baby, baby. I mean, I loved that movie. I'd never heard of Spike Lee before because it was his first film. It was incredibly dynamic, and he went out and made it. The reason that we don't have enough diversity in Hollywood is because it's fucking hard to make a movie.
Amen.
And you know what? We have more equipment, more ability. You can take Steven Soderbergh has produced, he's made Unsane and High Flying Bird with iPhones. Tangerine was a movie that was made with, I think, iPhones. The reason that there isn't a lot of, if you look at comparatively how many, the percentage, the ethnic breakdown of America, how many people, let's say there's, I think, there's like 13 to 14% of Black America, that there's of our population, 13 to 14% of America is Black. Of that 13 to 14%, how many want to pursue a career in the arts? And of that percentage, how many want to pursue a career in filmmaking? And of that percentage, how many people like Spike Lee are picking up cameras and going to make movies? And so when the problem is not, there is more opportunity. No one is, and Chris can speak to this, no one is stopping anybody from making independent movies now. All of these filmmakers got into filmmaking. Spike Lee, no one forced him to do it. He went out and made films on his own, and he's become one of the most diverse, important American filmmakers in the history of the medium. The man can do a thriller like Inside Man. It stars Clive Owen. He can do The 25th Hour. He can do Mo Better Blues. He can do a biopic like Malcolm X. He then goes and makes an American masterpiece like Do the Right Thing. I mean, the guy has proven, and he's a self-made individual. Now, where are all the people following in his footsteps? You had people like Robert Townsend, following in his footsteps. You had guys like F. Gary Gray, who've gone on to become one of the biggest tentpole directors. He did Fast 8. Or you've got Antoine Fuqua. There's a lot of great filmmakers, female filmmakers. You know why there's not a lot of women filmmakers in the world? Because it's fucking hard to make a movie. And it's like women are pragmatists, and being pragmatic, they're like, fuck, I'm not going to do that. I mean,
let me echo what Rob is saying. I love Spike Lee. He's a hero to me. Nobody told Spike Lee you can't have that opportunity. He created his own opportunity.
Yes, he did.
And in fact, I lost a job because of Spike Lee once, not directly. Let me tell you, I was up. This is after Film Threat kind of went away for a while, went online. I was looking for a job, and I was up to be the editor of the DGA magazine called Action Magazine. It was the official magazine of the DGA. I came in and blew them away in the first interview. They saw that I did Film Threat magazine, brought in for the second interview, interviewed by the head of the DGA. He asks me my favorite filmmakers. Well, off the top of my head, I named George Lucas, Quentin Tarantino, Spike Lee, all my favorite filmmakers. Not any one of them are DGA members. They're all independent filmmakers. And that blew the interview because of that my favorite filmmakers were. And I've always admired Spike Lee because nobody said, sorry, Spike, we're not going to make your movie. Look, you don't, as an independent filmmaker, you find a way to make your movie. She's Got to Have It, which I saw at the Detroit Institute of Arts back in the 80s.
Yeah, it was like 86, 87.
That movie was right around the time like Stranger Than Paradise came out and a bunch of other things. Like, it was so cool. It was like, this is just a guy that decided to make a movie, found a way to do it, and just did it. And his third film is Do the Right Thing, which I think might be, as you mentioned, a classic. I have the Criterion version of that. Probably one of the best title sequences ever for a film. Period.
The whole movie, the Ernest Dickerson's photography in that film.
Yes.
I mean, the acting and all of it. And it's like, well, here's what I don't understand. Why didn't you have a gigantic cadre of black filmmakers coming behind Spike Lee? There was some. But you'd think like, okay, and the reason is because making movies is hard. And I think what if these diversity things were not attached to businesses, I mean, there's a whole, it says in those things, it says, and by the way, if you need help, you can hire this company to help you along with these diversity requirements. So it's, again, you have to pay. I mean, and that's another thing. Parasite won Best Picture, a Korean film. Now, in Korea, it's a very homogenized culture. I've been there. I love Korea. South Korea is an incredible place to be. But if a movie is Korean, does it automatically fulfill those, or do they have to fulfill diversity requirements in Korea when they're making it? Or because it comes from Korea, it's automatically diverse?
They haven't gone that far.
All the diversity in this country is a very Americo-centric look at the world. Why are we not promoting filmmakers from other countries? Why aren't we going in and, there's a couple of countries, Nigeria has a burgeoning film. Chris, I've got a movie that you have to see called African Kung Fu Nazis, about these Africans that defeat Hitler. It's an incredible, it's a low budget movie, but it's incredible. I have a German.
I love it already. It's
the filmmaker. They're amazing.
But you're right. What these rules are doing is destroying American cinema. This is as the American identity becomes more and more fractured and more vilifying certain types of people, which I think is really unfortunate to see friends of mine sort of fall down this stupid pathway of vilifying people, including themselves. It's kind of horrific to see in real time. But it's destroying the identity of the last great era of American filmmaking. Truly American movies was the 70s. That's where The Godfather came from. That's where that's where Taxi Driver came from. So many great films. I mean, are we going to get to the point where we're going to start dictating to, say, a black filmmaker like Spike Lee, like, not enough white people in your movie, not diverse enough? I think everyone should just be able to do whatever the hell they want. Look like Belfast, that film, not a lot of diversity in that one. What are you going to do? I mean, I grew up watching a lot of foreign films.
Me too.
In great part to my mother, who said, you're going to see the mall movies. I know you're going to go see John Hughes films, which at the time I hated John Hughes movies. Mainly I couldn't relate to them because it was all like these rich white kids in the Chicago suburbs. And like, I grew up pretty, single mom, kind of poor, like didn't really know it till high school. It's like, how come all the kids are going to ski club? It's like, well, that costs money. But anyways, but like I saw a lot of foreign films, French films, Asian cinema, like new indie filmmakers like Spike Lee and so many great Steven Soderbergh, with Sex, Lies, and Videotape. Like, these rules are insane. And the fact that a guy like Richard Dreyfuss, a guy who's kind of out of the industry now, is the only person to speak up, this is stupid. And it's a shakedown. It is a shakedown of the studios. Ava DuVernay has a company called Array Releasing. She has another company where she will staff up your movie. She has like people, it's like listings of crew members. She's basically just you register on that and you can hire diverse crew members. It's a shakedown for her company, among others. It's what's happened in the industry where it's all these new jobs have been created. Intimacy coordinator has nothing to do with making a great film. Diversity and equity person has nothing to do with making a great film. COVID compliance officer has nothing to do with making a great film. There has been Hollywood is gutless to push back against what is obvious shakedowns for money, because everyone thinks Hollywood has an endless supply of money. From the outside, you might think that, but if you've worked on any big production before, Rob, I know you and I both have, you see those budgets, like how, I mean, the fact that Terry Metalis made something as good as he did with Picard season 3 on that limited budget, made a bottle show.
Chris, how are independent filmmakers going to make independent films expecting to comply with all of these things?
They're not. I wouldn't.
I mean, it's funny to me. I recently made a movie, as you know, called Tango Shalom. That's would that count? I mean, it's funny because our two Jewish leads are actually Middle Eastern, the two brothers who we've been accused of whitewashing, and it's like, are you out of your mind? What's that?
They did Jew face?
No, they were real Orthodox Jews,
Okay.
but they've been accused of. I mean, it's incredible that it's. I've been hearing things since we made this movie, like, well, the Jews are really white. It's like, really? Well, that's interesting. That's not what they thought in Nazi Germany, and they sure don't think. It's unbelievable, and the racial disparities, the way these things fall down, are very American. And all of the rules that we're trying to figure out, it's really not about, because why isn't Hollywood promoting? Where's all the Bollywood movies? We saw RRR. If you want to promote racial diversity, you're really only talking about racial diversity inside the United States.
Right.
You're not talking about really promoting an idea that there is one race of people on this planet, the human race. And we have ethnic groups within that race, but there's one human race on this planet, and yet we're not very good as Americans promoting anyone that's not American.
It's so frustrating that I talk to friends who've left the country saying America is oddly obsessed with race, and it's gotten annoying. Just having grown up and raised my kids in the 90s, it's like, I don't know, we didn't even talk about that kind of stuff.
We never did.
We just sort of organically had a diverse group of friends, only because we're all attracted to, we like the same stuff. We went to the same restaurants. We just, I don't know. It wasn't a subject of conversation. And I think there's a weird, it just feels like we're in this very weird place as a country. I think this stuff with the Oscars is stupid. I actually also think when it comes to Oscar nominations, it should be for American movies. Best Picture should be the best American movie. You can have a best foreign film, right, which is fine, and Parasite would be great for that. I'm not saying Parasite didn't earn that distinction, but Best Picture should go to an American film.
Well, like the BAFTAs.
Like a lot of other countries. Exactly.
Well, at what point, guys, does the Academy of Motion Pictures Art and Sciences just become irrelevant? Because basically these are guidelines for what you need to do to get your movie nominated. And, if filmmakers just ignore that and start making good movies and people start wondering, hey, why aren't these great movies being nominated for Oscars? Does that just speed up the Oscars, journey to irrelevance?
I think the Oscars is already irrelevant. Look at the ratings. Yeah, look at the ratings. The Oscars are already irrelevant. When you can track, if you take the collective box office made by all the Best Picture nominees, you'll see that it tracks that they're nominating movies that have made less and less money.
But is it irrelevant to the industry though? Like what I'm saying is that, so let's say that what often happens is somebody wins an Oscar and all of a sudden their stock goes up in Hollywood. They get bigger movies, they get more bigger paycheck. But with someone like Richard Dreyfuss, who says the quiet part out loud. And right before him, you had Spielberg kind of come out and say, we shouldn't be looking at movies through modern lenses and stuff like that.
Right.
At what point do the people in Hollywood realize that this is all smoke and mirrors and that Oscars are completely irrelevant?
Well, I think, first of all, I think they're irrelevant to the public now.
Yeah.
An Oscar winner is not a must-see movie. When you look at and I was making a point earlier about box office, if you look at collectively the number box office wise that movies have made that are all nominated for Best Picture, that number tracks like this. It's just, so when you have movies that have made less money, that means fewer people have seen it. We did an Oscars watch party the night of the Oscars, and I had on, like, there were like 8-10 of us on all at once talking about the Oscars. And I would ask, as every person joined the live stream, how many of the Best Picture nominees have you seen? And it was like 2. The average number was 2 of 10 movies.
Wow. But
You
that
can't see 10 movies in 1 year. It's crazy.
But what you're also identifying, though, is as the industry itself. The studios used to make the most popular movies that were also the most relevant. I mean, Columbia Pictures made Gandhi. You know, and the movies studios would make were also relevant culturally. Warner Brothers released The Killing Fields, for instance, which I loved. It was 1985. It competed against Amadeus for Best Picture, which also won. Can you imagine Amadeus being made by a studio today? Or a movie like The Killing Fields?
Yeah, they did remake it. It's called Chevalier. I saw it, and it's fucking awful.
Well, I mean, the
I'm
thing...
serious.
Oh no, I know. The thing about it is that these issue-oriented films, or like The Year of Living Dangerously, you know, where you actually had Linda Hunt playing a man, you know, we don't live in a world anymore where the entire business of Hollywood has changed to IP-oriented spectacle films. So the studios, they're not going to make a movie anymore that costs $50 million with the hope it might make $200 million. That's not going to work for them. They have to make $100 million or $200 million IP-driven tentpole that they hope is going to make $1 billion, because the business of movie making is no longer, it's all amusement park rides. You know, it used to not be that. And if you go back 35 years, I think about some of my favorite, John McTiernan making Hunt for Red October in 1990. There was a literary adaptation, beautifully made, top of the line, top drawer Hollywood production, ensemble cast, one woman that you barely saw, Gates McFadden.
And now Cocaine Bear.
Yeah. I mean, we're just not going to get, the business has totally changed. And the only movie that are making, I mean, you think Best Pictures have a certain pedigree. You know, they have a certain meaning to them, whether it's One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, or whether it's Annie Hall, whether it's, I mean, whatever it was, they had kind of a universal truths to them that would transcend the time in which they were made. Gandhi won Best Picture. I mean, the studios don't even know how to make a movie like Gandhi anymore. They wouldn't even know where to begin. They'd be like, maybe we should do this as a 10-part streaming series. And that's where we're at. And that's why you see a movie like Moonlight or Coda win, which are basically TV movies or really, really great cable movies. Like, not to take away from the fact that they won Best Picture, but even a movie like Coda is a very small movie. I loved Coda. I thought it was a great film, but was it a timeless Best Picture?
No, it's not. And neither was Moonlight. I think La La Land should have won that year.
La La Land should have won. And it's you look at these movies, and while I think Moonlight is a great indie movie, give that movie the Independent Spirit Award.
Yes.
But the Oscar?
Yeah, I know. It's only going to quicken the death of Hollywood. These new rules that they're putting in place, I think it's horrific.
Well,
they're good on Richard Dreyfuss for speaking out, but more people need to do it. Collectively speak out. This is a shakedown of the industry to use certain services, and we don't have decent journalists in our regular news. Entertainment news has always had compromised journalists. You know, they call them shills on YouTube. It's not as if this wasn't around in the 90s. I did an expose on the American film market back in the 90s. I was banned from that event. I don't know if you remember this, Rob. David E. Williams did a story, and we were taking there were prostitutes in the lobby of AFM there to close deals.
Oh, yeah.
We exposed so much stuff in Film Threat back in the day, which is why I've kind of been something of a pariah in the industry, because I'll just say out loud what a lot of people are ballless to actually say. So, whatever. Unfortunately, I got to get going. Unfortunately, I got to get to a screening.
Yeah, we need a screening. So, Chris, thank you so much for coming today. Just real quick, I want to make sure people get a chance. If you guys haven't had a chance to see Attack of the Doc, you need to get over to Amazon, or where can they see it? Vimeo?
Vimeo, Attack of the Doc. I think we get the biggest cut on Vimeo. I love Vimeo because it's the independent filmmakers platform. Anyone can release and distribute their movie on Vimeo. It's really, the quality is actually better on Vimeo. So I have the app on my TV, and I watch stuff on Vimeo all the time. But yeah, just go to attackofthedoc.com or go to follow Attack of the Doc. I would appreciate it. And I'm working on a new movie, and I'm doing Critics Court on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Pacific time. Rob is going to be on a future episode of the show. We're kicking off the defense and the prosecution face off this week. It's going to be epic. Critics Court, and we're 99% with over 100 reviews, audience reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. We're one review away from getting a fresh rating. Even if it's a bad review, will still be fresh.
Yeah, Chris, I can't tell you, Chris, how impressed I was with your documentary. It was an extremely good documentary. Even if people they hear documentary, they're like, I don't like what documentaries. Trust us, it was so entertaining. It was so fun. It was so nostalgic in the best possible way. Everyone in the theater, when we screened it at our event here in Vegas, walked out loving it. So it was really good.
So yeah, after you guys watch it, please make sure you guys go to Rotten Tomatoes, give it a review, and we're going to get that fifth one out there, that fifth big review. We just got to reach out to the right people.
Yes, I could use some help with that. But thank you so much. Obviously, I'll be back because, oh my God, you guys, when I was in Vegas, I saw you guys do a stream. Might have been one of the best. What stream? I don't know what was going on. I was riveted. I don't know what the topic.
Was that Unleashed with Reagan?
Yeah, it was so good. I was dying.
Yeah,
it's just
I'm just worried that someone digs that up and just cancels our channel somehow.
No, it's there was plenty of things to cancel you guys in there. I do it every Rob. People have come after Rob. People have come after Rob. People have come after me. Look, I've never given a shit, and the people who care about that kind of stuff. And Rob, you sniff out some phonies that are out there. Some people that are nice to your face and behind the scenes are backstabbers. A lot of people like that, unfortunately.
I think the defense that you and I have is that there's thousands of hours of our opinions, whether it's documented in print, whether it's documented in movies we've made, whether it's our thousands of hours of appearances on YouTube. And if somebody wants to take me to task for one thing that I've said, and said, you're a sexist, homophobic, transphobic, racist, whatever. I'm like, do you really think that's true? Because clearly you don't know me, nor have you done the research. And have you watched who I stream with? Do you know the people that I have on my channel? It's incredible. But what's really interesting about it is it lets people, I think, see how this performance activism is all a bunch of BS to allow people we have real problems with real concerns. And if you're going after people on YouTube that clearly have evidence to support that whatever you're asserting they are is simply untrue, but there's other fish to fry. And
Chris, I'm sorry to interrupt Robert real quick because I know Chris has to go. The secret to making those entertaining live streams is having everyone in a room where they can bounce off each other. This type of format's fine, but there's something magical about having everyone in a studio and being able to actually have a conversation.
I agree.
So,
all right. So as Chris leaves, we'll bring up that what happened recently.
Make sure you guys go to Film Threat on YouTube and watch Chris's videos, and hopefully we can get you back here again, Chris. We appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
Good luck.
thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. I'm glad I discovered you guys. It feels like I'm always discovering like new YouTubers. I don't even know how I started watching. I just like it comes up in a recommend, like, oh, it's that video, and then oh, that's a new sub. But yeah, no, I appreciate it. This is really, it's just great to be able to just connect directly and face to face like we did in Vegas.
Yes, we should do more of that. It'd be fun to do some stuff in LA.
100%. So thanks. And Rob, I will see you, you know, I don't know, wherever I see you. I'll see you at the next thing.
Yeah, well, we're doing it on your show, the prosecution, you know.
Yeah, no, I'll bring you on. Not this week. I got that handled, but next week, love to have you on. And thank you so much for just, I don't know, just love talking to like-minded people. We don't all have to agree on everything because we're adults.
I'd love to get in on that and Perry Mason you sometime.
Yeah. Let's go. Let's go. I've got my judge's robe hanging up right over here.
Nice.
Got the judge's robe. All right. Take care, gentlemen. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone in the chat. Hail to the chat. I saw the shout outs and thank you. I really appreciate all the support. Thanks again. Take care.
Take care.
Bye.
Speaking of studios, that was a really good segue, Matt. And
I tried.
So Matt is, of course, with the Salty Nerd podcast, and they had their studio broken in this last weekend. You know, after having that great week, we were in Vegas, Nerdrotic, Geeks and Gamers. Robert was there, and then you had your studio broken in. Can you explain what happened and tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so late Saturday night, early Sunday morning, someone broke into this building, had specifically targeted our studio, broke in here and basically stole like $9,000 worth of equipment. And I came in Sunday morning to just do a little bit of work and found everything, like the whole place had been ransacked, the studio had been torn apart, and whoever was here had basically taken a bunch of equipment. And so all of Sunday was basically spent dealing with the police and, you know, dealing with a lot of emotions. And, you know, we went to Twitter to tell everyone about what happened. And all of a sudden there was this huge outpouring of support for us. And the community has been fantastic. They helped us crowdfund all the money that we need to basically replace the equipment that was stolen and get back on our feet, because we are a startup business. Like, we pulled our money for this, and to have, you know, a robbery happen, we didn't have insurance for it. Like, it's something that could have been devastating for us. And luckily, with the help and support of everyone out there in the YouTube community and the YouTubers that came in and used the studio and stuff like that, we were able to recoup the money that we needed to basically get all of our stuff back. So we're working with the police. We have a suspect. We don't know if that's going to go anywhere or not, but we are basically picking ourselves up, dusting ourselves off. We're investing in new security measures for the studio to make sure something like this doesn't happen again. We upgraded our insurance to make sure we're covered for damaged or stolen equipment. And just today, before the live stream started, as a matter of fact, I ordered all of our new equipment.
Oh, good.
So
Good.
hopefully within a week or so, we'll be back up and running.
Awesome. Well, listen, I'm really sorry it happened, but I'm glad that we're getting the support you need. Everybody's been really cool about it. If you want to support Matt at the GoFundMe, I think Danny has the link in the chat. So thanks again, Kenneth, for that super chat and letting everybody know what's going on.
Yeah, we've been absolutely blown away by the support everyone's been showing us. And on Midnight's Edge live stream this morning, we got some advice actually from Chris, who just left, that we should go to like try to crowdfund up to 10,000 just in case like there's stuff. And we are noticing like things like Alex just realized that his laptop had been stolen. He left it here.
Sucks.
And so like there are these little things that we keep finding, and we're like, you know what, like we hit our goals. We had a stretch goal to 8,000 because we discovered a bunch of other stuff missing. We don't want to take advantage of everyone's generosity and stuff like that. So basically, once I get done with this live stream, I'll be shutting down the GoFundMe, and we'll just take what we raised and go forward with that. So it's you know, like we're not someone who want to ride this out and try to make money off it. It's just like we want to make enough to recoup what we lost. and leave it at that. So we really appreciate everyone's support on this.
Yes, awesome to everybody who's helped out on that. Thank you so much, Robert. I had a question for you. So as Chris was kind
sorry,
of,
I apologize. Can I one thing on that before you leave? I want to know, have you addressed this yet, Matt? This is really important because I found this shot, and I don't know if you guys know that Chris was there.
Oh, dang it!
Yeah. He took a selfie.
No wonder
and
he had
everything.
such good advice for you. He was there.
Were you aware of that, Matt?
I was aware of it, actually.
Okay.
Chris, I don't know if you know this. So he might play a judge on YouTube, but he is actually a very good private investigator. So we've had him on the case since Sunday morning.
Okay. Just making sure.
Well done. Well done, Brian. Thank you for that. Hey, so Rob, I had a question for you. So Chris was explaining, and I was going to ask him, but he had to go, and so you're probably better equipped to deal with this. So he was talking about how the Oscars and basically the Academy is kind of strong arming the studios, and I kind of wanted to get more of a thought on that because this whole new rule on the diversity requirements just seems weird. The studios seem to already be lining up with this forcing of requirements anyways. So why would the Academy, is it virtue signaling? Is it somebody trying to get a job? Can you explain what Chris was talking about?
Well, look, let me be clear and say that I think the idea, like I'm somebody that loves hearing stories from different people, stories that we might not have heard before. And that's where a lot of the great, like I use Spike Lee, She's Gotta Have It as an example. I'd never seen a movie about a black woman from Brooklyn who had multiple boyfriends. You know, that was something I'd never seen. And when I saw that movie, I was knocked out by the technique, the characterizations. Yeah, it was done it was a low budget film, but it was exactly what independent cinema is about. It's about new filmmakers telling stories we haven't seen before in really entertaining ways. And I'm all about it. I'm all about, give me stories, filmmakers of any ilk, of all shapes, sizes, colors, creeds, by all means. I want to see those stories. I want to watch those stories. I want to love those stories so I can buy the 4K disc. The problem is, I believe that America, up until about 10 years ago, we were on a good path. I've seen the industry change. I've seen all different kinds of people. Working in the film business, especially when you work in production, it's like any of the arts. The arts tend to attract more, say, diverse kinds of people than other industries because the arts have sort of that vagabond, we're putting on a circus carnival or something. It's not for people that want traditional lives and jobs where they know they're going to get a paycheck every month. They know they're going to get, or every week, they know they're going to do these things. The arts are not like that. So film in general, while I think there's an idea that there was some glass ceiling that you have to penetrate, and I think if you want to work in certain like executives and things like that, well, that's true for everybody. You need an Ivy League educated business degree in order to be hired by a studio. I understand that. That's what corporations are looking for. But in terms of production, film production, actual people working on set, I think for the most part, it used to represent kind of what American demographics are like, because there were people that to even be interested in doing that kind of a job, you have to be a certain kind of person. And I would dare say those people are on the fringes anyway, and so one of the great joys in my life has been working. I first worked on a set in 1989. And, it turns out that one of the guys that I was working with, it was one of the first time somebody made a pass at me at work, and that turned out to be a dude. And, I had already grown up with lots of gay friends, so I wasn't offended, and we became friends, and we go out and party together. I didn't care. Like, first hit on me, like, why not? I didn't get offended, but we became friends, and I'm like, all right, dude, I'm straight, but if you want to go to West Hollywood, I'll go hit rage with you. Because I'd gone there, I had friends already. It didn't bother me in the least. I think if you are a citizen of the world, you are a fan of people around the world, of shape. You learn very quickly when you travel to like all different kinds of people, of all shapes, sizes, colors, and creeds. Because when you go, if you're a traveler, and I think people that work, especially in production, are travelers. They're people that are not necessarily within the norm. So you're already dealing with the arts. And from what I was seeing, it was becoming more and more diverse as the years went by, simply because it would attract more people. If you think about different groups, you have to, first of all, grow up in a family that would even be encouraging of this kind of a lifestyle. And there aren't a lot of people that are encouraging of going into the arts. It doesn't matter who you are or what color you're. They're just, I mean, do you think that an Asian family is going to sit there and tell you, you should go follow your bliss and become an artist? From my Asian friends, that's not what I've heard from them. You know, it's not like Asian people can't get into the entertainment business if they want to. It's rough, but I would tell you this. There's a movie coming out called Joyride that's about 4 Asian women in their late 20s. And I'm telling you, it's going to be one of the biggest movies of the year. Because it's fucking hilarious. It's so funny. And so the people that anyway, that said, then people would say, well, Rob, that's just you coming from your place of white privilege. Maybe. But I too, I had no ties to the film business growing up in Seattle. I was just a big film fan. And most of the things that you have to create, the movie business is a place where anybody can create their own work. The problem is you have to be reasonably talented in order to do it. And it's really hard. And nowadays, I think a lot of what we're talking about in terms of diversity and things, people are not doing the work that they used to do to get to where they wanted to get. Spike Lee, no one gave that to him. That was back in the 80s. Nowadays, we have an entire generation of kids that are not used to the difficulties it requires to create lives or careers for themselves in difficult businesses. And people are using excuses to not do the work that needs to be done to get where you want to be. And that's what I see this happening across the board. You see it now. If somebody's like, when you're working on a movie set, in terms of a lot of places, if you're working on jobs that require, I would imagine, I've never worked on, say, an oil rig. But when you're working at a place that has a lot of work, that's rough work, people have sardonic senses of humor. You know, nowadays there are more people making phone calls on movie sets to HR. Well, so-and-so said something and I found it offensive.
Yes.
And I will give a speech. If I get to direct another movie, I'm trying to get a project off the ground. I'm going to give a speech at the beginning of the production. And I'm going to say, listen, if anybody's offended by something they hear somebody say on this movie set, before you make a phone call and call somebody, come talk to me. And I'm going to tell you this, toughen up, because you're working in the arts now. And one of the things about the arts is people have dark senses of humor. And if you can't take it, get the fuck out, because this is not a profession for you. Yeah, because listen, you're going to hear a lot of off color, and I mean off color, not in terms of race, but in terms of blue humor. If you can't take it, if you're going to bring your past trauma onto my film set, get the fuck off. I don't want you here. I don't want somebody that can't be a team player with all different kinds of people. You know, and I don't care. You know, I'll tell you something. In the arts, people who are trans, people who are gay, people who are of different ethnic backgrounds than myself are easier to work with because they've heard it all. They understand. They understand if you're
the older
really
ones for sure.
Well, even newer ones, they know whether or not you're accepting. They can tell. And I think that anybody, I'm talking about people that are inclined to work in the arts. Because people who are inclined to work in the arts have a certain, and they're bonded together by that. Anybody who's worked in the arts for any length of time has we're the misfits. I call it the island of misfit toys. And the island of misfit toys is the most inclusive place you can live, because that's why we're on that island. And that's one of the great things about working in the movie industry or working in any of the arts. We are the island of misfit toys. And what's really strange is the people that are that way from the time they were born.
Right.
You know, they didn't just become that way. They didn't just learn. The people that are now we've got people that want to turn the rest of the world into that island. The people that live on the island of misfit toys belong there. They know why they're there. They also know how to function in the rest of the world. Now there's lots of people who they don't want to come to the island of misfit toys. They want to change the rest of the world to be the way they want the world to be. No. That's why we're on the island of misfit toys, because we make our own worlds. That's why we go into the arts in the first place. And maybe I'm drawing this metaphor too far out, but the people that work in the arts are the same kind of people that have always worked in the arts. They're the outcasts. They're the misfits. They're the people that don't fit in. They're square pegs that don't fit into round holes. And they're the people you want to be on your sets. And they're the people that are already on your sets because they're already living on the island of misfit toys with the rest of us artists.
Okay,
and that's why all of
good...
these diversity requirements are strange, because what you end up doing is you end up getting people that aren't prepared to go into the kind of work that is required on a movie set, because movie sets are a different place. We're talking, and these requirements are talking about the people that are going to work on a movie set. And here's the problem. Movie sets are the only place in the world where you can actually quantify exactly down to the penny how much time costs. And what I mean by that is, any day on a movie set, let's say your days are $100,000 days, meaning that your budget is such that you're spending $100,000 a day, and that's a 12-hour day, to make whatever pages you have to make work. All that matters is, can you get your pages shot in 12 hours for $100,000? And you can figure out, okay, take $100,000 and divide it by how many seconds are in 12 hours. You can figure out exactly how much each moment costs. I don't want anyone on a movie set, whether I'm producing it, directing it, or whatever, that costs me more money than it has to. If I can't make my day, that's all that should matter on a movie set. I don't give a fuck what color you are. I don't care what your sexuality is. I don't care what your ethnic background is. I want the best person for the job, period. Because movie making is too expensive. And if I have somebody that costs me an extra cent or an extra second, time is more precious than money on a movie set.
Yeah.
Then they can't do it. And nowhere in these requirements does it say that these people need to be great at their jobs.
Right.
And on a movie set, it doesn't matter. All I need is the best people that can be there. I don't care what color they are. And by the way, nobody else does either. They want to make sure that you can get on the set and do the work, because not everybody can.
And I think that's part of the problem. So So you have, so I've known throughout my life, I've known dozens of LGBTQ people and almost all of them, anybody I've ever met, has always kind of pushed towards the arts. There's not a whole lot of wrench turners out there, because I think people in that community tend to be a little more artistic. So throughout generations, it's gone back for decades that Hollywood has been very gay, so to speak, right? A lot of people pretending to be straight, right?
Yeah. Thank God that's the case.
Thank
God.
Clip that.
So over the years, right? So now in the last couple of decades, it's become more acceptable. You don't have to, you can come out of the closet. You don't have to pretend to be straight anymore. And so you have this very large community in Hollywood, especially in the LGBTQ community, where they are now more outspoken. And do you think that they've become almost advocates for this growth and diversity, so that way, and to what you said, the pool of people who are talented, even though they want to bring more and more diversity into it, there's less people capable of doing the work just because they're diverse, because there's less diverse people in our country. So do you think that's, their desire to grow this diversity through force is actually handicapping them in the end?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, I think that here's the problem. Marginalized groups have suffered all kinds of atrocities. I mean, the LGBTQ community has been persecuted since the dawn of time. They've always been with us, and they've always been a persecuted class. In America, I mean, look at someone like Rock Hudson. He could never come out.
Right.
And there was, unfortunately, many gay actors and writers and directors and You watch the movie Gods and Monsters. That's a beautiful film about James Whale, who made Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein. Brendan Fraser's in it, Ian McKellen's in it, made by Bill Condon. It's a beautiful, beautiful film. And I think that these marginalized groups, anybody who has been persecuted, I mean, of course, obviously, Black America's history goes back a long way, and it's not great. It's never been great, coming from chattel slavery and then into all the way up into the Jim Crow era, where civil rights had to be fought for. You had Martin Luther King assassinated. So you're dealing with groups of people in this country that have never had it easy or good, and they've always been persecuted. But I would say, though, that more than ever, we've become, look at how quickly same-sex marriage became the law of the land. Americans now, I think, especially our young people, are more accepting and diverse and willing to, and this happened naturally. This was, I think, especially the flip side of social media, is that I think there's a lot more acceptance across the board than there's probably ever been, which is so strange to me, because now at the same time we've been derailed. And I think I'll tell you, because feeling and playing the victim, especially on social media, has become rewarding.
Yes.
More rewarding than, look, it is much harder to go out and make a movie or make anything, make art, than it is to sit and complain and bitch and moan on the internet and try and get, all you have to do is get somebody to give you, I like what you said's totally right, man. Get that dopamine hit. But let's see somebody go out and build something. Let's see somebody go out and make something. I'll tell you something. The thing about the United States of America is, this is true. I learned this. My father used this as an example. In Seattle, admittedly, we don't have the most ethnically diverse place in the world, but there was a time when my father's car broke down in what was considered to be not a great part of town. This is when I was like, 12. And my dad explained to me, he goes, you know what? There were people that came out of their house and asked me if I needed to use the phone to call somebody. And he's like, I'm an old Jewish guy. And I had all different kinds of people come out. And that's what is great about America, Bobby. And my father had not one bad word to say about anyone in my entire life. I never heard my parents say a bad word about anybody. And my father had all kinds of different friends, and he just liked people too. And I think that we as Americans, I mean, people are talking about blaming migrants for we are the biggest melting pot of any place on the planet Earth. We're the most diverse country with the most diverse group of people. There's a reason why immigrants are still coming to this country or want to come to this country en masse. And lest we forget, our entire population is made up of immigrants, depending on how far back you go. They really are, other than the indigenous Americans that have been here since before any European settlers came. But I mean, we were on a great path. And as I've said before, isn't it interesting, about 10 years ago, things started to change. We've had, social media has been weaponized against us on purpose by various, I would say, bad actors to distract us from what's really important. And what's really important is to build our futures. Instead of complaining about who's stopping you from building your future, figure out there's more opportunities now in this country than there's ever been, filmmaking especially. We're carrying around camera equipment on our phones that is more sophisticated than any of the cameras they had to shoot movies up till and through the 90s. Yeah. I mean, it's unbelievable to me. And if you want to become a filmmaker, go become a filmmaker. The problem is, it's like, why aren't there any great rock? Why aren't there a million great rock bands out there? Because it's hard. Musicianship is hard. You got to pick up a guitar and learn how to shred like Jimmy Page or Prince or Eddie Van Halen or whatever. That takes a lot of practice. Who's doing that today?
You're right. And it's easier because now you have things like YouTube. You have different ways to be seen. There was a time when industry was held back by the gatekeepers, but now anybody can put their art out there.
Yeah. I mean, YouTube has given us a worldwide audience.
Right.
I don't understand why I'm not seeing a gigantic explosion of indie cinema on YouTube. Why aren't people, there's a lot of TikTokers, a lot of talented people making reels, But where's the equivalent of 90-minute films? I mean, I would have thought, if you think about all the people making TikTok reels, amazing, right? Or making reels for Instagram. But where's the gigantic deluge of 90-minute motion pictures?
It's hard to make.
Hard to make.
Yeah,
And it, now we've got, these diversity requirements that in a way are asking for the impossible, because we don't have the population to support the diversity requirements that they're expecting, especially the population of people that are going into the arts. I'd be interested to target and find out, where are these groups of people that aren't able. I had to start out as a PA in a production assistant. I was a production assistant on Leatherface. I was a production assistant on Army of Darkness. I was credited as such in the credits of those movies. Where are the kids that want to start out as a production assistant and spend 5 years working their way up in the industry and learning how movies are made? Where are they?
Yeah, they don't.
Are they being
jobs at all?
Well, that's the thing. Are they being kept out of the industry? When you talk about where are the people that aren't getting hired? I mean, and if you're not getting hired, I'm Peter Billingsley, the actor. He and we were working on a movie called Arcade. We ended up recutting it. We were the post supervisors of it. We started a little company and started shooting music videos and industrial films, anything we could to make money, and we did. And we sort of were working our way up. We were making short films. We were doing all kinds of things.
That's the shoot your eye out kid, right?
Yeah. And where are those kids today? There's a lot. They're starting tech companies and video game companies, but nobody is stopping you. You can be on the internet. It doesn't matter who you are. You can do anything, but everybody else is, wanting to go on the internet and bitch and moan and call other people ists and phobes. Listen, man, I don't give a fuck about that. I want to watch your movie. I want to see your work. Show me something that you've made. Make something great. You want to change the world? Don't complain. Go change the world. Go make the art that's going to change people's minds. Don't sit there and bitch and moan and complain. Do something constructive. YouTube videos are a start. There's a lot of great. One of my favorite YouTubers is ContraPoints. ContraPoints, she's trans. She's making some fucking banger content. I don't even agree with her a lot of the time, but I love her content and I love watching her work. She was studying. She was going to become a PhD, a doctor of philosophy, and dropped out of academia and started making these incredibly beautiful YouTube videos that you can see. She just dropped one recently. I mean, you can change the world, but even what ContraPoints is doing, so much work and so much thought goes into those videos. What you guys are doing, Kadish, what you're doing, Popcast, what you guys are doing.
Wake up, Kadish.
You're making some great, you're making great content though. Where are those people? Don't talk to me about diversity. I want to see those people make their own way, make some stuff happen. You have the tools, you have the technology, you need the talent, you need the wherewithal, you need to get up and go before your life goes up or gets up and got up and went, whatever.
The tools are readily available. A computer, and not even a good computer. You can have a computer that's just sort of okay, and you can use an online video editor like Pixel or whatever, and get a lot of work done. You don't need Final Cut or Vegas Pro or Premiere to actually do those things. Now, those things are the best.
Well, that's the problem with the kids today. If they don't have that, that's the thing. Like, I don't have what I need. So I can't do it. It's like excuses.
I built my kids. I went into extreme debt and built my kids like a $10,000 computer with After Effects, Final Cut, Premiere, Vegas, the whole nine. I sat down with them for weeks every Saturday for like an hour or two each Saturday, trying to teach them the fundamentals, because they told me at one point they wanted to make videos like I did. The second I stopped sitting with them, they went right back onto TikTok or Minecraft or whatever. They don't care yet.
It's easier.
Now, we have a super chat from Ghostwriter on a similar topic here, so we can read it here.
I think Matt needed to go. Matt, Matt, hurry to get out of here.
Oh, I'm sorry. I've been going off on some.
We're gonna miss you.
It was good tangents, though, brother. Good tangents. Matt, do you need to go, or you
stick around? It was fun. Yeah, I need to head out. I got appointments with locksmiths and all types of stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
Today,
so make sure. What do you guys got going over the Salty Nerd coming up this week? Well, do you have anything?
Well, Yeah, our recording schedule got thrown for a loop because of this. Basically, like we don't have an audio board, so like we can't record any audio. But what we are going to do is tomorrow we have a scheduled live stream at 1:30 with Paulie from Latino Slant, and we're just going to be doing it from our home computers and stuff like that, typical StreamYard setup instead of doing it from the studio. But hopefully we can get up and running again pretty soon, within the week or so. We'll have to wait and see. So, but yeah, I've got a million different things to do today, and all of them have to do with securing this place.
Yeah,
Gotcha. Well, we look forward to what you guys put out. Once again, we're sorry that happened for you, and we're here to support you, whatever you need.
Appreciate it, guys.
Tell
Thank you so much.
Danny to sleep there for a few nights.
He'd be your in-house security.
Get him some beer and a TV. He'll be good.
Yeah, we'll just pay him in weed. It's fine.
Nice. All right, Matt. Take care, brother.
All right, thanks, guys. Talk to you later.
So we actually have a really
I
good
hope I
super
didn't
chat here.
drive him away. You know, going
No,
off
no.
on it.
He I think he's been stressed out about this whole thing.
Yeah.
He wanted to come on the show today, to participate, but also to, I think to get that GoFundMe out there to help him out. So, but Brian, can you pop up the super chat? I thought this was really good about Hollywood. Yeah. Ghostwriter for $10. Is Hollywood creatively bankrupt? The simple answer is yes. Those in charge take credit from the actual creatives that got them where they are, then kick them to the curb. Example, Marvel. And, with Guardians of the Galaxy 3 coming out now. Did you get a chance to see that one, Rob?
I have not yet seen it. I know. I'm trying.
What a
I'm
wonderful
trying to go
film.
tonight.
It's actually been, it's very, some people say they love it. Some people say they hate it. I thought it was just another great version. It really shows us what we have coming with DC. That James Gunn has created this wonderful end of this thing, but some people don't really like it. So the question is this the end of Marvel, Rob? Do you think, with this movie, or do they have more in them?
No, you know what? I think that what's really interesting. I was talking about this the other night. If you look at the Marvel movies, beginning with Iron Man. Iron Man is a movie. Take away the Iron Man out of it. Let's look at it as a movie about a man named Tony Stark, rich, powerful, genius, playboy. And that movie is about his change of heart in confronting what horrors what he's used his intellect to do to create weapons of war and all of this. He comes face to face to what they're doing to human beings that he never has to meet or deal with. And by the grace of God, one of his own munitions doesn't go off. He's captured. And what happens, he's able to escape, and then he has to battle for his own soul and his own conscience and the conscience of his company. Now, that's a great story. You could take that story and make it a comedy, make it a drama. In the case of Marvel, they make it a superhero movie. And the great thing about the Marvel movies, and the first, especially the Infinity Saga, is if you look at Star-Lord's journey in Guardians 1. I mean, he's a kid who loses his mom to cancer, and in his grief runs out and ends up being taken by the Ravagers into space, but then he still has to, he's still dealing with his own, how does he become responsible? How does he become a team player? So all of the Marvel movies were about the characters as opposed to the universe itself. Cut to Quantumania or Thor Love and Thunder. These are films that completely lose that plot, in the sense that, Gore the God Butcher, that conversion was interesting. I mean, but yet they didn't do much with it. And it becomes all about the goofy universe. What is Thor's journey in this movie? Right. It's muddled at best. And in Quantumania, the first Ant-Man movie, Scott Lang comes out of prison. What does he want? He wants to be a good dad. Yep. He wants to put his family back together. And he meets this kind of misfit group of people and gets involved in this crazy heist or whatever. But basically what he's doing because he wants to be a dad. He wants to be a family man. He wants to put together his life. We all understand that. Marvel has lost that plot because they feel that, as they've done the third, or with the Thor movies, the fourth, they've lost the idea that in every one of, I mean, the thing about Tony Stark's journey in Iron Man 1, 2, and 3, and in all of the Avengers movies and the movies he appeared in with Spider-Man, you still have this idea that he's a man looking to build a suit of armor around the world. He knows what's coming. He knows he's a family man. He's become a caring man. He cares about humanity. He's no longer the self-centered asshole he was in the first movie, all the way to the point where he dies saving mankind. Literally brings back humanity with the snap, or whatever. And he gets rid of Thanos is what he does. He gets rid of Hulk brought back everybody, but he's able to get rid of Thanos and save the world. Marvel needs to return to that. Each one of the Marvel movies, as they forget the larger universe. In order to save the franchise, your movies need to be about your characters, and you have to give your central characters. The movies must focus on some central journey the character must make, and in that journey changes or goes through some kind of alteration in some way that we, the audience, can understand and empathize with. I was watching, just as a whim, late night, I started watching Captain America, the First Avenger. And that's Steve Rogers, same thing. Yeah. A man who gets to step up. And if you look at Winter Soldier, here's a man that wants to believe in America and finds out that Hydra's taken over, and it's still his journey. How does he hold on to being Captain America when he's found out that everything he believes in has been corrupted? And yet the only person that can save it is him. In Civil War, it's the same thing. You have two men, you have Iron Man and you have Captain America, that have beef, that have a difference of opinion, a moral and ethical and a principled disagreement. And that disagreement's the heart of that movie. Whose team are you on? I remember, the Sokovia Accords, and what's interesting is you would think that it would be the reverse. The Captain America would have supported the Sokovia Accords and Tony Stark would not have, but it's not that way. Right. And that's what makes it interesting. And Marvel's completely forgotten that. And the Guardians of the Galaxy was already established. They already established those characters. So James Gunn, from what I understand, stuck the landing.
So do you think they're just puzzle piecing now at this point to build their universe up so that they can have more streaming shows for kids? Because it feels like when you look at the Marvels and you look at, the movie that's coming out, The Secret Invasion, it seems like they're just trying to, instead of telling this hero's journey, like you said, or having a good, plot development for each character, it seems like they're just focused more on building their universe without focusing on their characters.
Well, yeah, that's what I've always said. I call it the Burnett axiom. Never put your universe before your characters and your story, or never put your agenda before your characters and your story, because you'll always lose, because ultimately you're trying to make entertainment for people. And I do think that Marvel's in a bit of a quandary, and I think that they've also, this multiverse track that they went down was a huge tactical mistake, because what it does is it makes all the characters can be expendable, because there's always another version of the character from a different multiverse. We've got now the Council of Kangs. Okay, great. You defeat one of them, another one comes back. I mean, I understand why they went with Kang as a villain, but when Kang has been defeated basically twice, then you're going to keep bringing Kang back. I think that was a mistake. And I know they have all these plans, but right now nobody cares.
Yeah. Right.
Honestly, the
was
audience.
Was Thanos defeated at any point during that lead up, or was he just more and more menacing?
He was more and more menacing, and he to the point where he won. Right. You took him all the way up to the end of Infinity War, and he snapped his finger.
Right.
Should have gone for the headshot, and
that was so good.
I mean, it was. Everyone in the theater. I went to the screening. It was all the LA pundits, or the El Capitan. You could hear people. I'm sorry, Mr. Stark. It was just weeping. People just disappearing. It was incredibly well done. And Marvel has completely failed to engage their audience. Look, I still love the MCU. Yeah. I love watching the movies. I mean, maybe the reason I didn't run out to go see, I was breathless with anticipation for all the Marvel movies, but my breathlessness. I mean, like, I liked Eternals. Do I think Eternals is a great movie? I don't. But as somebody who liked science fiction, fantasy, and horror, it was a straight up sci-fi movie that asked a lot of really interesting concepts. Where is the ramifications of that movie?
Right.
That movie,
a giant Eternal in the Atlantic Ocean.
And R. Shem the Judge, a creature that's 3 times the size of the Earth, shows up with his booming voice and is talking like mankind looks up. And How would that would what would the Vatican say about that? And I mean, it would they've never addressed it. People like we're now living in a world where, hey, Thanos made us all disappear, half of us disappear for 5 years. But that's why I'll tell you, I think my favorite, I like WandaVision a lot. I really think Falcon and Winter Soldier turned out to be the Marvel show that I was most interested in. Why? Because it's the story of how Sam Wilson finally comes around to believing that he should wield Captain America's shield. And that to me was, I mean, they had to change the storyline because of COVID, and I understand all that, so it wasn't entirely successful. But the reason I like the show, when I think back to all the Marvel shows, the ones I think about the most is Captain America and Winter Soldier, simply for that reason. Because it's about Captain America, and then when he has that, and people show that clip at the end, do better, Senator, for how woke or whatever it is. But no, that's I don't agree with that. I think that Sam Wilson grappling over the use of Captain America's shield was a really great. I mean, he gives it away in the beginning, and look what happens to it. I mean, it was a really legitimate story. The execution.
Rob, let me just add to that real quick. My issue with that is that Sam Wilson, it would have been fine had they also given him the serum or some kind of ability to utilize the Captain America tools, but he is still just a regular guy.
Yeah.
That's why it should have gone to Winter Soldier, who is not a regular guy.
Yeah, it is problematic because he can't throw the shield.
The adamantium shield, right?
No. Yeah.
Well, and you love the character, but the problem is that, you ask yourself, why didn't it go to Winter Soldier? That's where it should have gone. I mean, we like Sam, but, that's when you ask yourself, is it agenda driven? Is that why Sam...
Was it checking a box?
Was it checking a box? Or, because that's not the way the comic books went, right?
No, and as a matter of fact, the Truth storyline, when you had him, like the debate they had with, what's his face? I want to say Obadiah Stane, but that's Iron Man 1. Is it Jeremiah? The character, the original character that Sam Wilson confronts.
That's right. I don't remember actually.
Yeah, he's right. I love that confrontation, and he's like, you shouldn't believe in America. Look what they've done to us. What they've done to Black America throughout its history. And Sam's like, you know what? I understand all that, but I'm gonna be Captain America anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a big moment.
That's awesome.
That was a big moment for him, and that's what I want more of. But look, as the years have gone by, especially the last 5 years, everything is this agenda, and it's the debate has completely dominated our social discourse, and comparatively speaking, in terms of what we're discussing, it's way out of proportion. And I don't understand it. We're damaging. Agenda-based storytelling is damaging to the truthful nature of great storytelling. It just is, and I think that's part of the. I think it's part of what's going on, and I don't care if my heroes are male or female.
Right.
I really don't. I mean, I grew up, I loved Lieutenant Uhura was my favorite celebrity crush when I was a kid, but I loved Ellen Ripley.
Yes.
I never, it was so funny when she's having a conversation with Dallas in Alien. She's trying to convince him, like, look, do you know anything about Ash? She's like, all she's doing is trying to live up to what she's supposed to do as the exec. And like, we have a quarantine protocols for a reason. Here's a character that she was right the whole time. And I never thought when I was growing up, I love Aliens. I think it's a perfect movie. And to see the character of Ellen Ripley, she was the smartest person on the ship. She was the only person thinking about the ramifications. And I did not grow up thinking, well, she's just a woman mansplaining to dudes. No one ever thought that, because she was really well written, and she was right, and she was portrayed. And when you get to her in Aliens, what's really interesting, especially in the director's cut, they make her femininity, and they make her the fact that she was a mother that never knew her daughter. Right. It was her femininity and her womanhood and her motherhood that gave her the strength to save Newt's life at the end of that movie.
And we all responded to it.
Yeah, and now if that movie came out, somebody would probably say that he was transphobic. because he leaned too heavily, which is the most ridiculous thing in the world.
Well, everybody's being programmed by the internet now. I mean, this is we've been developed in these little groups. That's what I was talking about earlier. The telephone. Now there is nobody alive who remembers what it was like before we had telephones. So before you had to talk to people face to face. That's the only way you could communicate with people. Then telephones came along and changed that. The internet. Listen, in 75 years, there will be no one alive, right? That was alive before the internet came around. And those of us that were alive before that time, our minds are different than the people who are being born right now.
Yeah. Plus, TikTok is literally conditioning kids to have ADD out the gate.
Well, but it's I'm talking about from a communication, and that's why the problem is there was never a problem with Sigourney Weaver's character with Ripley, because our groups, we believed in whether a strong mother or a strong woman, everything was okay. But now you have these groups that have been developed on the internet, which are saying, well, wait a sec, now that's a Mary Sue. Now she's not, obviously, but now we've got these curriculum we didn't even know anything about before, and so now you can sit there and delineate each character by this, that, the other thing. And there are many instances where that's happening, but there's also cases where it's not happening. And Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is one of those movies where there's no agenda. I saw nothing through the whole movie, but yet I hear people saying, well, no, there's agenda there. So I'll be curious to hear what you think.
Well, yeah, the thing is though, now people are saying that there's agenda everywhere.
Right.
They see a strong female character and they're calling it agenda based, or they see a person of color and they call it agenda based, or an LGBTQ person. And I don't think that's necessarily true at all.
Swinging too far the other way. People are pushing back against things that don't even need to push back for.
I mean, I wonder, it's funny. I love Shane Black's Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, and Val Kilmer's character is named Gay. His first name is Gay Perry, and
Gay Perry.
Could he get away with making that movie now by not casting a gay actor in that role?
No.
Would somebody say, I can't believe that? And here's the problem that I have with our modern age when it comes to actors. Since when in all of human history did an actor have to be the thing they were in real life to play that person? Never. Actors, by definition, are playing characters and people that they aren't. That's why they're acting. And I mean, it's amazing to me that why are you? And now I understand the idea of casting a straight actor to play a gay person can be somehow problematic for the gay community if they're taking the place of a gay actor who is equally capable of playing the role. I can understand that you have a point there. But the thing is, if you have an actor that nobody knows and an actor like Val Kilmer, you also have the economics of filmmaking, which means that what means more to get butts in the seats, because you're still making a movie, you're still making a product that needs to be sold and purchased. And I think a lot of people would then they want to turn that into an issue when it's like, look, the economics of what we're doing trumps the your ability to call out activism on it. Because it's like there was a movie about the Belle, I forget the name of the character, that they wanted Scarlett Johansson to play a trans man, a famous trans man.
Yes.
And this was a movie that was going to get made. The movie didn't get made. I think somebody else made a documentary about this, but the movie didn't get made because the activist community rose up and screamed bloody murder about, so now the movie didn't get made. That movie getting made with Scarlett Johansson in the role might have done more to help the public understand the issues facing trans people than any other thing that they could have ever had. More so than any activist blathering away on Twitter, more so than any bunch of people complaining that J.K. Rowling is a TERF. Because look at a movie like Philadelphia. Tom Hanks played a man dying of AIDS. Denzel Washington, it was based on a true story, but that movie probably did more to create more feelings of sympathy in the general public for not just gay men, but anybody afflicted by AIDS than anything that they could have. And he won an Academy Award coming right off the heels of, or either did Forrest Gump after or right before, I don't remember, but he won for that as well. Tom Hanks's Oscar-winning portrayal of that character probably did more for eventually having same-sex marriage being a part of the law of the land. because you had somebody, a beloved actor like Tom Hanks, playing a man dying of AIDS, which was courageous for Tom Hanks to play. But in a movie directed by a gay man, Jonathan Demme, who made such a sympathetic, beautiful film in that, Bruce Springsteen did the opening theme, did the theme song to that movie, Philadelphia. You had all these people come out because it was great storytelling. Nowadays, you'd have fucking dumb activists online going, Tom Hanks should never play this role, and Philadelphia never would have gotten made, and who knows what damage that might have done to AIDS research and same-sex marriage being approved. I mean, you've got to look at those watershed moments, and you have to fight the battles or understand what you're doing when you're doing it. And I think the activist community now, unfortunately, all I see is narcissism. Yeah. All I see is a bunch of people, they want to feel good themselves for being on the right side of an issue. And they've got all these people online going, oh, you're part of the community. Thank you for doing this. I'm like, what have you really done? When was the last time you went out and helped at a soup kitchen? When was the last time you helped out homeless people? When did you hit the streets and do something? Helped anybody? When did you make anything? When did you do anything beyond being on Twitter and blasting me, calling me a name on Twitter or something? I mean, go make something, man. Go do it. Or woman, or however the hell you identify. Go make something. Go help people in your community. But there isn't any of that.
No, there's not, because it doesn't even take that many voices. How many voices does it take for somebody to write a news article about something? 3 people say something on Twitter, and all of a sudden, it makes the news cycle. It's very easy to turn everything upside down, and frankly speaking, I don't know what the solution is. But let's go with Ghostwriter's little super chat here. Thank you, Ghostwriter, for $5. Problem is, the jocks that picked on geeks now run everything. They say what they always have, that we, the creative geeks, are having fun wrong. Have the jocks turned into, is it more, I know what you're talking about, because the jocks were somewhat in charge and then the geeks were kind of treated poorly. Has it become almost that the jocks have become the geeks in a way? Like, I know that, people went from playing sports to now playing video games. And now, what do you think?
Well, I would say that everybody's become a geek. That's why I say the audience of my YouTube channel is the post-geek singularity. Everybody, we've all found common ground, whether it's House of the Dragon, whether it's Star Wars, whether it's comic books and video games. I think that what hasn't changed is the jocks didn't always grow up to become the people with money. Mm-hmm. The people with money are still the people with money, and that hasn't changed. You have this old embedded system of now people want to change it and be the elites, but there's only a certain kind of people, families, to command the kind of money that is being commanded now. It's very hard for people to become that. It's something that you inherit or perpetuate as opposed to create from scratch. And there's more people that created these new businesses, the tech sector. You have a lot of unfortunately, a lot of people abuse it. Like, look at Miss Theranos herself, and there's a lot of people that have become, I think the structure has changed, but it hasn't changed in the sense that still the people that command the economic resources hasn't changed.
It's all the same still, right?
Yeah, and I think we as a population are just more easily manipulated because of algorithms and because of social media, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I think that'll the thing about that is if you just turn off social media, I mean, they don't want us to. They do everything they can to keep us linked to social media. Right. But all you have to do is turn your phone off and disconnect. And if you disconnect it and you don't pay attention to social media at all, and I think this is actually going to happen. Really? I think we're gonna reach an inflection point where and people are gonna die. There's gonna be some kind of horrible conflagration of some kind, but it's kind of like the Butlerian Jihad in Dune. When the AIs took over and humanity revolted, and then the AIs were eventually destroyed, and humanity decided we will never create machines that emulate our brains ever again. And that's why you have the human computers, the Mentats in the Dune universe. One day that's going to happen, because at the end of the day, people are going to finally realize that this is not good for them.
Right.
And they're not, I mean, people have taken their own depressions, and they've now turned them into entertainment. You now have people that are bonding together to out pain one another. And they're trying to bond, and they're taking their childhood trauma and commodifying it and turning it into something. If it's not necessarily, they're commodifying it, not necessarily monetarily, but by they're getting love and they're getting affirmation from other people. And that's taking the place of doing the real work, which is what human life used to be about.
Right. And it's so much easier now to get that gratification. You used to have to work for it a little bit. You used to have to get out there in front of people. And I'm worried because I don't know if we can ever go back. Are we the last of a dying breed? And will society just simply change once we're all gone? And this is the new norm. Is this the future? You know, and these are the types of things that terrify me for my children. But, you know, I don't know if there's a fix.
You know, I think this is just it's a phase like everything else. And I think ultimately what's going to change is well, things like AI, but it's going to be technologies. And look, what's going to happen is suddenly there's going to be tens of millions of people out of work. And they're going to be standing around going, well, now what the hell are we going to do? And you're going to have, everyone talks about the Great Reset. The Great Reset is going to happen when half of the jobs that people are doing now are going to be eliminated in a very short order. And people are going to be left standing around going, well, what do I do now? Then we're going to go through a period of trial and tribulations, whatever those might be, but it ain't going to be good. And then people are going to have to redefine themselves and decide, what does it mean to be a human being? And the questions that we should have been asking all along. You know, I think back to David Gerald, who wrote the Star Trek episode, The Trouble with Tribbles, wrote a series of books, but he never finished it, the series. It's one of my favorite series of books I've ever read, called The War Against the Tor. And in it, Earth is being invaded by an ecosystem. Like, it's not giant aliens. It's literally from the submicroscopic level. We don't know how, you never know how it got here. But starting at the equatorial level, a much stronger ecosystem of fauna and animals are taking over the planet. It's literally being terraformed out from underneath us. And the threat gets, it's only 4 books. It's supposed to be 7, but it gets more dire as it goes along. I don't know why I find these books so compelling. I pick one up just to flip through it, and I end up reading all 4 of them again. But in the 3rd book, they have this thing they call mode training, where the humans that are left have to change their modes of thinking, their ways of thinking about just life. How do you approach life? And I've always thought that at some point, I didn't think I'd see it in my lifetime, but I think I might see it in my lifetime now, where we're going to get to that point where nowadays, like, we have all of, you know, people talk about the victim mentality. The victim mentality is the quick, easy. It's what Yoda was warning you against. You know, the dark side of the Force, which is a part of that being a victim, where the world is victim. The world's a victim. You can't, like, and the thing is, but most people are lazy, and most people don't know how. They don't know how, like, how do I start? Well, what's interesting is how many YouTube tutorials, how many times when I'm editing do I not know how to do something with the software I'm using? So I'm like, well, okay, I type in the YouTube search bar, how do you do this on Final Cut Pro X? Or how do you do this on Avid? Or how do you do this on DaVinci Resolve? And somebody's made a tutorial about it. I might have to watch it for 15 or 20 minutes. I'm like, oh, great. Now I know how to do that.
Yeah, you're going to have to do a little bit of work, Rob.
Yeah. I mean, a little bit. It's just incredible that we live in a world where we are surrounded by every single thing. If I was 6 years old, and, you know, I think I got my first camera, my 8mm Minolta XL601 8mm film, Super 8 camera, and I started making movies with my action figures. Probably 10. When I first got that, if I was 10 years old now and decided to make movies, the technology, I would have been directing feature films at 20 with Spielberg, like Spielberg did, because I was so into it. But you had to wait. You'd drop your film off at Photomat and you'd get it back in a week, and it was only 3.5 minutes long. And it was the technology. And there are some kids that are doing it. There are some kids that are doing insane shit, But again, those are the kids that are motivated. And this day and age, what percentage is motivated?
Right. And what percentage is diverse enough to win an Oscar, right?
Well, that's again,
that's another
but look at
problem.
what's really interesting is like we go on YouTube, you can turn this into, YouTube is a global network where we can now have access to 8 billion people. Now, there's only certain people that are going to watch our content. And for the most part, language difficulties and things like that limit us. But still, the fact that even my channel, your channel has more subscribers than I do. But you think about, we get hundreds of thousands of people a month watching our content. Hundreds of thousands.
It's mind-blowing.
The John Campea show in a month with 330, I haven't looked at what it's been in the last couple of months, but 6 to 7, sometimes 8 million views in a month. That's just one YouTube channel. I mean, and people laugh at us for being on YouTube, like, you pundits are all bitching and moaning and complaining, but look at the conversation we're having now.
Yep, you're right.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
John Kokoza for $10. I totally agree with you, Rob. Thank you so much, John, for the super chat. Great seeing you all in Vegas. Rob, sorry we didn't get a chance to meet and shake hands.
I'm sorry,
and,
but we'll do it again.
Yeah. Chris and Rob, we should organize movie meetup for Dune 2 in LA. Shout out to Fellowship supporting Salty Nerd.
I love that. That would be, we should do. I mean, I got to tell you, I was so impressed by Gary's meetup. I know I got there late, but all the people I met, it was unbelievable. And everybody was so nice, and it was so cool meeting. I mean, and that to me, look at, people always slam Gary, a lot of people like that guy, but I'm a big fan of Gary's, and I think the work that he's been doing lately with his 2 editors, one of them being Perry, I never remember the other, Perry Chan, I don't remember the other editor's name, I'm sorry, but they've been doing some really great work with their videos. But look at the community people flying in from the Philippines. I met a guy who rode his bike down from Edmonton, his motorcycle from Edmonton, to be in Vegas, Edmonton, Canada. Awesome. And look at what he's able to do. Or look at what somebody like Terry Metalis, who was open to listening to us, the fact that he brought together disparate YouTube channels with disparate audiences and was willing to support those channels and be on shows. And, that was amazing too. And that's the way it's supposed to be.
Right. Well said. Well, we should do that Dune thing. I was thinking about it, actually. We should do our own little local SoCal meetup with fans we have down here and do something. Maybe a bunch of us together, we can do some sort of movie thing.
By the way, Melted Copper says, John Campea, what a sad loser. And there are people with their friends and this guy and his sad employees mimicking that formula. I just want you to know that I was mimicking his formula before I was a sad employee. Just want to say, the reason I started my own YouTube channel was because I streamed with the late great John Schnepp. John Schnepp was the first person to suggest, he thought I had that unique brand of positivity that the internet could use. And I was like, really? So I was already doing my channel.
Yes, you are filled with hope, and you fill us all with hope. And Michael Nemo for $5. Thank you, sir.
Look at that, Rob.
Oh, look at that.
Oh, look at that.
The Death of Superman Lives, signed by the late great John Schnepp.
By the way, all I'm saying is that next month, the world that knows John Schnepp and knows that documentary is going to be shaking their heads in wide wonder.
Oh.
And they're going to say, that's all I'm going to say.
Oh, can't wait.
Yeah.
You're not going to believe. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I already know what you're talking about, and that's awesome.
It's my jaw hit the fucking floor. That's all I can say.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Michael Nemo for $5. Thank you so much, Michael. All pizzas must have every ingredient available for diversity's sake. No more just cheese and pepperoni. You will include black and green olives. Well, I do love black olives and pepperoni, but there's some people that are just pepperoni pizzas, and I think we've talked a lot about this whole thing. When you're making a movie, you don't have to make the combo pizza. You can make the movie. That's what art is about. Art is for making the type of movie you want to make. And if you have to now go, well, I'm going to have an African American person, or I'm going to have an Asian person, or an LGBTQ person in my movie in order for it to be good, I think a lot of people are just going to say, you know what, I don't care about the Oscars. I'm just going to make the movie I want to make, right?
That already happened. People don't care about them now. So,
well, movie makers still care about it because it's a stepping stone to get to the next place. Look, you get to make Star Trek, right? You get Academy Award winner Akiva Goldsman. He gets his job. A lot of people get their jobs that way. So I think it's important that, but people are going to be less wanting to fill it. I mean, obviously there's a lot of great movies that are going to have diverse casts and they're going to qualify and it's not going to be a big deal. But you said earlier about making Braveheart. I mean, like, okay, now we got to introduce the Moors. Maybe we bring the Moors into Scotland somehow.
No, that's Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Well, see, Robin Hood qualifies because Morgan Freeman was in that. So we're, you know what I mean? So, it's going to be interesting to see how things go. I think most movies are relatively diverse these days because we're more a diverse world than we've ever been. But, the fact that, how do you do a time period piece, and still be able to, I mean, look at the Gangs of New York. How do you do that movie? You can't, right?
Well, and I think that's the strange thing about all of this is that suddenly what is important about art? Like why is it a filmmaker's job now to right the wrongs of the past by hiring practices? And the funny thing, it's filmmakers like Ava DuVernay she made that documentary, The 13th. It's called 13 or 13th. About the prison system. Excellent documentary. But like everybody, why is it, in California, there's a group that just recommended reparations be paid to all Black Californians who suffered up to like $1.2 million. And taxpayer money is going to have to be spent to pay that. Now, I understand the idea behind it, but how are we supposed to right the wrongs of the past? And if you get mired in trying to right the wrongs of the past, how are you going to build a future? And the thing is, go back far enough, and who wasn't victimized by the past?
Right.
I mean, what group has been, the entire history of mankind is one of conquest, of rape, torture, murder, awfulness. And when you start rewarding people who, by the way, weren't even here and weren't the people that suffered the humiliations of the abuse, how is it then? Where do you stop? Do you go back 50 years? Do you go back 100 years? I mean, it's just it's another. Where's the thought of moving forward? Let's use the past and learn from it, not make those mistakes again, and move forward.
We call that the 90s. So in the 90s, we started doing that. We're like, okay, the bulk of civilization realized, oh my God, we screwed up, or civilization screwed up. Most of us were born in a time where, I was born in a time, Rob, you were born in a time where racism was still definitely happening. Anti-Semitism, anti-gay, that was a big deal, and it did happen. But getting into the 90s, into the 2000s, everybody's like, holy shit, we can't do this. And so people kind of realized it, and we all just started moving forward as one. And there's still outliers. There's still racists in every community. That's never going to change, But for the bulk of humanity, it was just getting better. And now it just seems like we're more separated than we've ever been. So,
well, because as we see with the Academy, you have now groups that monetize that,
right?
And it's like the BLM movement that raised all that money. If you start looking into where that money went, it's very disconcerting. So, I mean, once something has been monetized, then the activism that people, I understand why it was started, but if you're now monetizing your activism, I get what you're now making money off the very thing that you want to combat. Right. And that's not cool.
So it bastardizes the whole process, and it becomes more about greed than about anything else.
I mean, what's so funny is you should be encouraging, take all these things about diversity. Why aren't you going into like inner cities and putting cameras in kids' hands and teaching filmmaking all over the world? Why are you asking studios? Because they already have the money. They can already go do it, when really what you should be doing is empowering people at the earliest stages to learn how to become filmmakers.
Too much work.
Run
Bob.
film festivals. Promote, promote the if you take those diversity requirements and start Black filmmaking programs or indigenous filmmaking programs, or take whatever group that you want, whatever immigrant film programs. And so I have a friend that I hopefully will be working with in the next couple of months, who went to Namibia and would go to villages in Namibia and put video cameras in the hands of kids and teach them how to go make documentary films. And they got some amazing stuff back. And my buddy, he went to Namibia. He also went to Afghanistan and shot a ski movie, which I thought was insane, but he did it.
Wow.
He's in Greenland right now shooting something, or he was.
That's very cool. The John Burns one from before, Brian, can you back that one? Oh, you got the Oliver? Okay.
Yeah, it's up there, sorry.
So, John, thank you for the super chat. Gandhi would have ended like Cleopatra, bankrupt.
You guys see the new Cleopatra yet on Netflix?
No. Cleopatra was Greek, though.
That's a wild thing. You know what's really funny? I found a meme where someone was, it was a Reddit post, someone was complaining about it. They're like, I don't understand why this keeps happening. It's like, it's really obvious. And then someone put up a meme of Netflix recreating The Lion King. And it just shows a black lion. Netflix recreating Coca-Cola's famous commercial. And instead of a polar bear, it's a black bear. It's a long list of possible new, they made Netflix posters for all the movies we've already seen, but they just swapped them out.
Yeah, it's happening.
I mean, look, what I would rather see is real. Like, I want to see the next Spike Lee, man. I want to see the next Anton Fuqua. I want to see the next Ava DuVernay.
Yeah, Spike Lee.
Yes, we need to encourage that. Well, then the Academy should put their money where their mouth is and do exactly what you said. Go into the inner city, go into these communities, hand them cameras, and teach them how to do it. It's one thing to virtue signal from the balcony, and it's another thing to get down and do it yourself. So
from your golden palace,
right? Oliver Lavery Farag, thank you for the £10, sir. I have been trying to recommend an Oscar winner to a friend. She won't watch it because she thinks it will be boring. It's actually really good, even if it won an Academy Award.
But
there's been some good ones.
Yeah, there's been some great Academy Award movies. Yeah. I mean, The Godfather's an Academy Award movie.
Yeah.
There's
some great ones. The Academy Awards, they do have a pretty bad rap right now I'm sure it's earned for boring movies. Because a lot of the Academy Award winning movies are just boring. They're just boring.
Look at Everything Everywhere All at Once. It's a fantastic movie. It won Best Picture. Yeah. It's not boring at all.
No, not at all.
So, I mean...
But generally speaking, a lot of the ones that win are, they're boring.
Yeah.
Even if they're good stories.
Look at Pinocchio won, right? Best animated feature. That movie freaked me out, by the way, Pinocchio. It was very well done, very artistic. It's unbelievable the work they did, but anyways. So,
now you're talking about the newest one?
Yeah, the Guillermo.
I hate it. It's nightmare fuel. Jesus.
Yeah. 200-watt studio for $2. Thank you. Art that is mandated is meaningless and not art.
Ooh, that's well said. I like that.
It is.
That's awesome. From Maria?
Maria with Tea and Telly. Thank you so much, Maria, for $2. Comic-Con Virgin here. Going to go finally.
Now you're going? Good. Now that I'm not going, Maria? Of course.
Who says you're not going?
Dude, I don't want to go back and be in the nerd sardine cage, dude. It's like... Rob, when was the last time you were at Comic-Con?
I was at a Comic-Con here in LA at the LA Convention Center.
Okay, so when was the last time you went to the San Diego Comic-Con?
Last year.
Okay. All right. So last time I went was 2 years ago. And I was literally squeezed on both sides by nerds and various folks. If you want to actually go somewhere that you want to go, good luck. You better be moving with the crowd because it's just so crammed and it's become so corporate. I don't know if I want to deal with that to get to the next corporate slop that they're going to feed me. I don't know.
Well, I think that's you've just nailed a big problem. I think with Comic-Con, it's not fun. It used to be so much fun.
Yeah, it used to be worth it.
Yeah, it used to be worth it. Yes.
So Maria, I'll still probably go, Maria. Don't worry. I'm not going to stop going. It's the funny thing about Comic-Con is like I just want to be around this stuff, and I'm really bummed that I missed the days that Rob and Chris, all the good stories you guys have.
Oh man. Well, it was just a different. It was a different time, and but I think that will. The problem is all of nerd culture has been commodified, and it used to be, by definition, conventions were put on by fans, and then with companies like Creation, that's what happened. I mean, a company like they suddenly they were doing the Star Trek conventions and then other conventions, and now they are all there's money making everywhere. Everyone's making cash, and I have no problem with that. It's just that it comes at the expense of making these events fun.
Right. Yeah. The cattle call is what it's become.
Yeah.
Ghost Rider for $5. Thank you so much, Ghost Rider. The creative consultants involved with bringing back G4 came up with that, Chris. Oh,
he's talking about the whole, like, if we went through all the things that we did wrong.
Oh.
Yeah, I remember watching that. So I was a massive fan of G4. I was watching G4 when it was Tech TV. I was watching Screensavers. That was, as a nerd, there was no YouTube outlet for me when I was 18, 19, 20. And I'd go to the cyber cafes and compete in video game tournaments. And I was really into this culture. I was going up and down the coast actually competing in tournaments. I have a tax return that I have it saved where I actually had to pay taxes on winnings I won in gaming. And it was a great time. There was no outlet for me as a nerd and a gamer that loved Star Wars and Star Trek and loved video games to actually watch. There was no YouTube. So I started watching Tech TV. I got a cable package. I paid for a cable package for the sole purpose of watching Tech TV. And then when it switched over to G4 and Attack of the Show, it was like the golden age of TV for me. And it was interesting when they announced that they was coming back, and they used Kevin Pereira to announce it. I love Kevin Pereira. He's like my spirit animal, dude. I want to be that guy. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching it, and he's like, G4's coming back, Tech TV. I'm like, yes, it's going to be awesome. And they're coming back to YouTube where you can do whatever you want. They had the restrictions of TV back then. That's what I thought. Mm-hmm. I thought the restrictions on television back then actually limited their creativity. So when they were coming back to YouTube, I was like, awesome. And that first episode, I see Kevin Pereira. It's awesome. He comes out. He's doing his thing. I'm like, I'm coming back. Everything's flooding back to me. I'm like, yes, Attack of the Show. And the moment he says that line where if they went over all the things they couldn't do or shouldn't have done, it would take too long, I was like, oh, no. Oh, Attack is not Attack. It's been infiltrated by this new sort of PC police corporate nonsense. And like right then, I instantly felt like my soul just sort of dropped. And I was like, even Kevin Pereira is having to say this. And I'm like, I watched a few more episodes, then eventually Kevin left, and I had no reason to watch anymore. At one point, I realized I'm only watching for Kevin. All the new talent is just bland and not uninteresting. No offense to them. I'm sure they're reading scripts that were approved by the corporate overlords, but it didn't work for me because the only person I really still cared for was Kevin. And even Kevin, you can tell his hands were tied the entire time.
Well, what was really interesting is that YouTube, I've often said that the currency moving forward in the 21st century for any human being is going to be authenticity. And the whole point of the YouTube nerd pundit space, the only reason people watch us is because they know we're authentic.
That's right.
if it came out that Rob Burnett doesn't really like Star Trek, he just pretends to like Star Trek, then my credibility would be, I mean, people can tell that I'm deeply immersed, in stuff.
That would be the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, I mean, I do this. I talked about my physical media. I did a show on how I read an article on Letterboxd I thought was really good, and I talked about the article and a life in physical media, and people would know. But the reason that they watch us and the reason people like Gary's authentic. Gary doesn't bend the knee to anybody. He says what he wants to say, and when people come out and say that, oh, he had Alex Jones on his show, so he was approving of Alex Jones. No, I think Gary's just a punk protest San Francisco guy. He's an alternative. He's exactly a product of what you want coming out of San Francisco. Gary throws open the doors and he's like, everybody's welcome. What do you got?
Yeah.
Which he literally has done. He drives to different states, throws open the doors, throws a party, invites everybody to come. And how many people do that? How many people do that? And all these people that are bitching and moaning, I always ask people, I'm like, if you hate my guts, please come on my channel. We'll have a nice conversation. No one ever takes me up on it.
Mm-mm.
They just yell at me on Twitter. And then if I ask them, I never hear from them again. And they go yell at me. They block me and go yell amongst their friends about me on Twitter. And I'm like, I'm just honored anyone's yelling about me at all. I mean, I take that as a badge of honor. Somebody's thinking about me after
somebody cares about what you say.
It's amazing. But yeah. I mean, look, X-Ray Girl gave me her hat at Gary's event.
Oh, nice.
I love this hat.
Her quarter black Garrett hat. Nice.
Yeah, I love it.
That was such a great meetup. You were stuck in the corner. You did get there late, but as soon as you showed up, everybody went, "Ooh, Robert!" And they all kind of
crazy.
Robert. It was so great. Such great fans.
No, it was fun. I mean, it was, and it's funny. I'm not going to say what she told me, but when I went up to X-Ray Girl, because who doesn't have a crush on X-Ray Girl? But I said to her, I go, "Can I ask you a personal question?" And she immediately said something let's just say it was a sex act she doesn't participate in. And I was like, yo, that's not where I was going to go.
Right.
But I laughed my ass off. I thought it was hilarious. And it was that kind of an event. And I'm sure if I had said the same thing back to her, she wouldn't have said this. Somebody else would have misconstrued it and said, that was a terrible, you're a sexist, misogynist dinosaur, a product of the Cold War,
Not at that event, but yes, maybe on Twitter for sure.
That's what I mean. But it was so fun. And then I realized I was with my people. I'm like,
yes, exactly.
And I met X-Ray Girl's husband. What a delightful couple they are.
Yes,
I mean, a nerd aspirations. Kind of like Lana Ewan, who's new on my YouTube channel doing her reviews.
Oh, I saw that.
Yeah,
it's really good. How's that going?
Well, there's only been two. They're starting small, but they're doing much better than they usually do on their channel. But I love their production. They shoot everything in 5K, and I think it's really, really well done. And I think Lana is amazing. I mean, if they ever did G4, they should get her. She's the new Olivia Munn.
She's the new Olivia Munn. Yeah, I was going to say that.
She's and she's really, really smart. I mean, they're really smart and witty. And he directs cinematics in the video game industry.
Oh, cool.
So he's got the technical chops, and she's I'm sure that within 6 months somebody will find her and hire her away she'll be an actress or something. She works in the healthcare industry. They're both great people. I was so proud. They came to me and I'm like, are you kidding me? You're going to let me put this on my channel?
Yeah.
Like, oh my God.
They'll be with you guys forever. They really like you and get good content. Yeah. If you guys haven't gone over to the Burnett work, you need to definitely go over and see what Rob's got. You guys, you have so much good content, such a variety of things happening. Hopefully everybody watches you.
Well, yeah, it's funny. I mean, people still, they're not used to, my idea had always been to build a network. Mm-hmm. I wanted to build, that's why I called it the Burnett work. I thought, because I love my cheesy titles, Robservations.
You have, your name fits all these great things. I've always been thinking, is there a Shane Servation? No, that doesn't work. So
no,
I love that.
Well, it's funny because I thought it would be, and I always dreamt of, like, if I was going to be on YouTube, to put 12 hours of original programming a day with a bunch of diverse people,
right?
In terms of diverse interests and things, and I mean, and it's interesting now that I'm back on my own. Like when I went off when I went to Campia full time, I stopped streaming with everybody, and I missed people. Like Az and I were doing these great review shows, and I was going on with whether it was Chris or all these other people, and I loved doing that, because it's like being at a science fiction convention where you're going on different panels and you're hanging out and doing all this stuff, and it's so much fun, and that's what people want to see.
Yes.
They follow you around from place to place, and it's all good.
Thank you so much. I agree with you 100%. Goran Falth for SEK 20. I think we figured out that was basically $2, right? So for the Norwegian money. Hello, Goran. Thank you for the super chat. Appreciate it.
We also have some super chats from John Burns here, and I'm gonna.
You got to do John Burns in like a slew. Like you got to because he's like a puzzle wrapped in enigma.
Yeah, John Burns.
I love his
the puzzle wrapped in the enigma, wrapped in a black hole, forced from the event horizon. Yes. Okay, I have some other ones here then. Well, let me do one for him real quick. This is a comment from John Burns. Disney historical United Empire loyalist movie. Dude, I don't know what you're talking about.
Disney.
That is a long stream of words.
Empire loyalist movie. It sounds like I don't know which one that would be. Mulan, maybe?
Yeah, explain that one. And then from August TV 123.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, cool. Thank you, August. Okay. I'm just making sure. I think I might be dyslexic. All right. Do you guys like the way Picard Season 3 set up Legacy? I don't want a 5-year mission on the USS Sexual Tension with Rafi and Seven on a ship darker and less comfortable than a brig. Give me Dave Cohen's idea. Yeah, I look, if they do Legacy, if it's ran by the right people, I doubt it'll be USS Sexual Tension with Rafi and Seven.
Yes, I don't think so either.
But you know what? If they do Star Trek Legacy and it's ran by Michelle Paradise, then that's exactly what it will be.
That's true. You're right. It all depends on who they have set up. And
every planet they run into will be like some hyper emotional.
Well, I've already told you guys, I think Legacy is going to be, I think we're probably going to get Star Trek Legacy with probably the limited Janeway 7 of 9 series that's been rumored for a long time. But that'll probably be what the Legacy is, I think. And then we'll see how that goes as like a mini series. Hopefully Terry gets it, because if Terry doesn't get it, it's going to be terrible. So, but Rob, you probably know as much about it as we do.
Well, did you hear what they've done? Terry had a deal with CBS. They've suspended all the producer deals.
Oh no, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
so
wow.
Terry, I believe, had a deal his deal with CBS got renewed through October, and there was an article in Deadline. I would assume it happened to Terry. I don't know, but that they announced that a lot of the studios they've suspended all the deals they have with producers.
Wow.
So I don't think if they were going to do something, it's out of. I think it's off the table right now until the strike's over.
Yeah, I mean, it did feel like, and we've been saying this publicly, just kind of the way things went down on the IMAX. It does feel like there must have been a conversation between Terry and Kurtzman that was something like, just hold on, because Kurtzman's words were just overflowingly positive at the IMAX. I was so shocked to hear him, because he had been. I mean, we went to the premiere. He was so like, oh yeah, he did a good job, and it was like that was it. And so to hear him at the end of it go, this guy knows Star Trek like the back of his hand. I mean, it just felt like something would be coming out of that. But, Terry's, he's a great showrunner. And if they don't do something to make a move on him, if he is free, somebody else is going to pick him up someplace else.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And did you hear about that? It looks like Paramount is like the only streaming service apparently that has lost money, according to their reports. And I think they're fifth in line with the streaming services, and their shareholders are suggesting dropping Paramount Plus and going the Sony play by leasing out their IPs to other.
I'm going to do a story about that on Robservations tonight.
Oh, wow. So make sure you guys tune into Robservations tonight to get that story.
Well, I'm going to also be talking about the Roddenberry archives and the things that they've been dropping, like the new Regeneration movie, which is basically the third in a series that they've been dropping over the last year.
Yeah,
and
that tweet that came out was really good that you shared.
Really good.
Kind of did the whole background. That was fantastic.
And my contention is, I've always said that with all the I've been reading Star Trek novels since I was a kid, but with all the different Star Trek novels and comics, and this is true of any of the big IPs, Alien, Predator, Star Wars, there is call it the extended universe, but like no one wrote Star Trek novels to get rich. They wrote Star Trek novels because they loved Star Trek. And some of the best Star Trek novels should have been either movies or TV shows. They should have been turned into, unfortunately, they never will be because of how Hollywood works. But the people that are working so there's this company called Ote that is a cloud-based rendering software company.
Oh, wow.
And they're breaking all kinds of ground. And when they teamed up a couple of years ago with the Roddenberry Archive, this was outside of the purview of CBS. They have created, they're actually building virtual starships that you can walk through and go to every deck, like the Enterprise refit from the motion picture. And you can see in some of the videos that they've been dropping. And they have this bridge video that John Delancey narrates that's really, really great, where you can see they've built every 4K digital versions of all the different bridges. And what's funny, when they go through the bridges, when they get to the Kurtzman era of Trek, none of the bridges really fit in.
Right.
They have, and you can look and be like, "Oh, that looks not good," but they've done some really great work. And then this ongoing Yeoman Colt storyline from Pike's Enterprise, which, by the way, she's not in the show, which I think is just genius that they've made it about her. It's 3 different videos that they've made that were derived originally from one of the early Voyages comics that Paramount published back in the 90s about Captain Pike. And then all these connections to Star Trek fiction. And to me, that's the best use. Now, this was just created as examples of what the Roddenberry Archive, what they can, and Ote can do in terms of rendering and things like that. But it also shows it's got the deepest dive into Trek mythology and the extended Trek universe. They picked and choose what they wanted from the comics and the movies and the novels, and they did a really good job. And you're like, that's really satisfying, because you have people that just love Star Trek. Now, do I think that they could write a television script or a movie script? I don't know.
Right.
Because they didn't plan these. This wasn't written out in script form or anything like that, but it's an amazing thing that they've done. And I was going to cover it tonight.
That's cool. I think Thursday we're going to get it. I think Thursday we're going to get to do a walkthrough of those bridges. So the guys who built it reached out to us, and we've been talking with some of them. And so I think we're going to get to actually do an actual walkthrough live on the show.
Oh,
so
it's amazing. What they've done is amazing.
It really is such great work. And then I think we're going to have Rod Roddenberry on at the end of the month on this show.
Oh, nice.
On this channel.
Yeah.
He said he's going to come and do an interview, and we're going to go through all the archives. So you get a chance to ask him questions too. It'll be fun.
That will be most excellent.
Yes.
All right, Moss. From Jun Wang, previously on Clownfish TV, was a new collection of official, wholesome comics based on true stories from Clownfish TV and their family, including funny rants, family value stories, and their running with the evil Kevin Smith.
I remember those stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember Clownfish TV.
Oh yeah, no, they had the whole. They were on top of the whole Kevin Smith thing with He-Man and Masters of the Universe, and that came out. They came out hard against him and kind of his.
Oh, the YouTube channel.
The way he flipped. So
That's right.
Clownfish TV's good content.
I'm surprised. I'm just surprised that Kevin Smith doesn't cry more. We need more crying.
I think he's said he's not going to do that no more.
So yeah.
It was really embarrassing what happened
of
to
The
him.
Flash. Let's see how it works out.
Yeah. He can't
I
help
want to see
himself.
Kevin Smith watching Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
Oh, that's emotional.
Right.
I was choked up by it. Honestly.
I get it. So if you were choked up at it, what's Kevin Smith gonna do?
Oh, he's gonna lose it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. He should just do videos like that. He get 1 million views every video.
If he did literally just reacted to it, yeah. Goron Faith. Rob, I can listen to you forever.
Well, I don't know. Can you imagine for listening to me for all eternity? It'd be like being the Lazari locked in the room at the end of the Alternative Factor, going at each other's throats for all time. But I appreciate that. That's very nice of you to say.
I would pick your voice. No, that'd be good.
Thank you.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'd run out of things to say at some point. I know people would be like, you wouldn't run out of things to say. Yes, I would.
You know, it's funny. Shane was like, we're going to have Rob and Chris on. This is a couple weeks ago. We're going to have Rob and Chris on. Ronan. I'm like, at the same time?
I just love hearing them both talk. The world explodes. It's wonderful.
Should I just take a break that day? Or
Yes. No, you got to start the show.
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting because Chris and I, have been orbiting kind of in the same circles for it's funny. The first movie I ever made, the short film that I made with Peter Billingsley, called The Sacred Fire, that was based on a Canadian writer named Charles DeLint's short story. We sent it into the Film Threat Video Guide, and we got a good review from them. Like, I want to say that was in '93, 30 years ago.
When you guys first met?
No, I had met him before that because I was a fan of Film Threat, and he used to, but we probably met 1990, 91, sometime around there. But because he was, he was really the only person covering the burgeoning independent, like when Soderbergh made, you had, like he said, Jim Jarmusch doing like Down by Law and Spike Lee doing She's Gotta Have It. And then Soderbergh came on later with Sex, Lies, and Videotape. And then that led to Kevin Smith doing Clerks, and then Swingers getting made. So Chris was kind of on the forefront of that indie wave, and he was the first person there. So he was covering that. And then in '94, him and Mark Altman started Sci-Fi Universe magazine. And I had been a fan of Mark Altman's because he would write these 100-page season wrap-up articles for Cinefantastique magazine about Next Generation. He'd review all the episodes, and then he would do these deep dive articles where he interviewed everybody involved in the production, and they would always be CFQ cover stories. And then I was working at Full Moon, and Full Moon was going to sponsor our movie Cowboys and Aliens. It's called Oblivion. That it was a movie about cowboys and aliens called Oblivion, starring George Takei. And then they were co-sponsoring that screening with us. And I'm like, I got to talk to Mark Altman because I had seen Sci-Fi Universe magazine. So he and I first talked on the phone, and the buses didn't show up at Comic-Con to take the audience to where Peter David was because he'd like written the movie. And we finally got over there, and we all became friends because of this screening that was 3 hours late or something.
That's cool. That's a cool story. Someday we're going to sit down and do your interview, start from the beginning and just do the whole thing.
Another $10 from Juan Wong. Rob, I hope you don't mind me bringing up a new comic book from Clownfish TV. In it, there's a story about a kid who found an old camera and made his own movie. I would be honored for your critique.
I would love that. I didn't know Clownfish TV published comics.
I didn't know either. That's cool.
Pretty rad.
I would read that.
Yeah, send it over. We'll make sure Rob gets it.
Yeah. Do you have a digital copy? Is there a digital copy?
I'm sure a digital copy. That's all. That's how it goes nowadays. From John Burns from 279. Thank you, John Burns. New Lion King. White lion father's black lioness.
Okay, that's probably more realistic.
Yeah. So like the
mix.
You know, it's funny. I remember Scar being like a slightly less saturated color of Mufasa in the cartoon.
He was. Yeah, a little darker.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Wasn't he so great? It's too bad he's gone.
What? Oh, you
Alan Rickman was awesome.
Yeah. Oh yeah, awesome. There was actually a. Here's another one from John Burns about Galaxy Quest. She's joining Weaver in Galaxy Quest. Brilliant acting. Yeah.
That is so great. Yeah, she wasn't even supposed to be in it. They didn't want her in it. So because they didn't want anybody who had been to space or who'd done a movie in space.
Right.
And she's like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, built my career on this. Is what I'm all about. So.
Yeah, I remember when we were doing that our little doc about that. In fact, by the way, everyone, that will be released next few weeks at some point. I think, right, Shane?
Yeah, I think so.
It's going to be released on a Sunday, and we've added some stuff to it. We've amped it up, and we're going to finally make it public. So members have been watching that for months, but finally the regular everyone that's not a member will also be able to watch it. So don't miss that. It was good. From Melted Copper. The actor. Sorry, I'm sorry, guys.
No, it's okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wrong. It's not wrong. I apologize, guys. I'm on the wrong page. I'm sorry.
Melted
From John
Copper.
Burns.
You almost got something.
Almost got it. Melted Copper. King's Charles III will be on the Canadian $20 bill.
Well, he's a king now, so, you know.
Did you guys
Put 'em on the money.
see there's people waiting outside and they're wearing diapers, visible diapers, to see the coronation of King Charles because they don't want to miss anything, so they're just like defecating in diapers, and not a few people,
do what
a
you
lot
gotta
of
do.
people.
That's what fans do, brother.
That is wild.
Come on, you'd have to remember waiting in line for E.T. You have diapers on for that movie.
Defecate in my pants, that's for sure. You know, I was smart. You don't drink and eat when you're in a fan line. We gotta wait it out. You know, dehydration be damned.
They used to have these things called sneaky leakers. So when I used to go to Mardi Gras back in the 90s,
I remember those.
you put on this. It was basically like a catheter that just went to the ground, and because New Orleans already smells like piss, pretty much all the time, you just piss off into the alley, right? And while you're standing there watching the parades go by and you're taking a piss, it was the weirdest thing in the world to take a leak. And like in public like that, but there were so many people doing it. It was crazy.
Yeah,
I'll tell you funny.
I've seen those.
I was in New Orleans. Do you know where Pat O'Brien's is? Do you know
Yes.
Pat O'Brien? Okay, so Pat O'Brien's is this gigantic bar.
Yeah.
But there are sections of it. There's like an inside part. And so I was at Pat O'Brien's. I met this girl. She was black. She was hot as fuck. And so, we're talking and we're chatting, and somehow, well, I'm from California and I had relatives that lived in New Orleans, but I never thought that, who cares? And so by the end of the night, she and I are just making out in one of the back bars at Pat O'Brien's. And when I came up for air, I realized that people had given us, there's a wide berth around us. And I'm looking up and I'm seeing a sea of white frat faces that were not pleased, that are not pleased that I'm making out with this very, very hot lady who was, by the way, a great kisser. And I looked at her and I said, perhaps we should leave. And she says to me, she goes, not without getting a drink first, we're not. I said, I like your style. So I bought her probably a Hurricane or something. And then we quietly but very slowly just sauntered away together. And the night turned well. The night was a good night.
Yeah.
This is Rob's humble brag right here.
But this was like 93. And I was like, I was thinking to myself, I'm like, oh, we're still in the South.
Yeah.
Like it never would have occurred to me.
Yeah.
Because I'd never gone anywhere in college where I was in the South. That was the only time I ever. By the way, I had a great time in Mardi Gras. It was fantastic.
Yeah. I lived there for 3 years. And let me tell you, a lot of people talk about racism. I know it's kind of a big thing we talk about. Like, oh, I don't understand. We're from California where there's not a ton of racism here. We just kind of grew up in this melting pot of people. But I'll tell you what, in Louisiana, at least the time that I was living there was a very separation of colors happening. And that time frame was specific to what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, it was still fun. I mean, I love jazz. And so, to me, New Orleans is like a different city. It's like it's not in America.
Right. It's totally different. Yeah. It feels like you're in France or something, turn of the century.
I have a deluge, and that's the only word I can use, a deluge of John Burns super chats.
Okay, let's go through
them.
Some of them are comments, some of them are questions, some of them are just freewheeling like jazz.
Okay, it's like jazz super chats. I like it. Come on, John.
So this is the John Burns segment of jazz super chats. Here we go. Disney is I already read wrong one. Okay, my bad. Start over again. Here we go. The Waynes lost the rights to Scary Movie. Sad face.
Oh. I wonder why.
The Wayans, yeah.
Yeah.
They probably sold it because they needed money.
I didn't really like those movies, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of.
Yeah, I like the scary movies a little bit, tiny bit. Movie Tanks showrunner blames cis males, not the WNBA. What does the WNBA have to do with a movie?
Well, I can tell you, cis males weren't going to see the boy. What was it called? Buddies? No, Bros. That was it.
Oh,
Remember how they blame moviegoers not going to see Bros? I'm like, well, it's not exactly the content I'm probably going to go see. But
so here's the problem with Bros. So it tanked really hard, right? They got mad and they said, cis people aren't watching our movie. Oh, but wait. If you look at the math, neither did gay people.
That's true.
Look at the math. If let's say it's 7.5% of the United States identifies as LGBT. If you only had 10% of that 7.5% watch your movie, you would have made money. Which means your own people didn't watch the movie. What does that say? Why are you blaming us?
It's if good content is good content, regardless of who's in it.
Yep. Yeah, I think the marketing probably has something to do with it. It was like it looked like you were just joking the whole time. Here's another one from John Burns. Dinner for Five. John Favreau chats with actors.
That was a good. I like that show. That was a good show.
Dinner for Five.
Wasn't that Dinner for Five?
Is that what it was called?
Yeah.
Is that what it's called? I don't remember.
I like John Favreau a lot. So Swingers. When I first saw him in Swingers, I just loved him.
Oh yeah. Swingers is what sold me on John. Well, him and Vince Vaughn. I love Vince Vaughn since that movie.
Yeah, it was called Dinner for Five.
Dinner for Five. Okay. John Burns. Here's the speech. Come to me for the context.
Come to me if you want to live.
I don't know. Okay, here we go. That's the next one. Burt Reynolds was a huge fan of Pepe Le Pew.
What does that
You know
mean,
what?
John?
You know what's funny? I see that.
Yeah.
Well, he's canceled, man.
Yeah.
Pepe Le Pew is canceled.
Pepe's canceled. Yeah.
Pepe Le Pew was canceled.
He was a serial wannabe rapist, I guess, or whatever.
Or was he just a lover of women? Was he just
I am a lover of women in the arts.
Pepe Le Pew.
He was a passionate skunk.
I had a great, when I worked at Warner Brothers, I bought it at the gift shop. I had a great black and white, like striped shirt, but it was a button down shirt, and it had this beautifully embroidered Pepe Le Pew over the breast pocket. And it was, I used to wear that shirt all the time. I would wear that shirt. I would, and people complimented me on it. I would always wear, my uniform was like button down shirt rolled up with jeans on and like loafers with no socks and a belt. This was like 1992, 93. And I'd pin my jeans.
Right.
So,
well, and Pepe Le Pew was great because what happened every time with Pepe, right? So he would, of course, the cat would get paint down her and she looked like she was a skunk, and he would fall in love and he would, chase her everywhere until the moment where, the white line was gone, right? Somehow water removed it, and now she was like into him, but he wasn't into her anymore. It was a fantastic cartoon. It's the stupidest thing to cancel Pepe Le Pew. So dumb.
Yeah, I like that cartoon actually. That it actually taught me how to aggressively court women.
Well, that's the problem. That's what you're saying.
This is how I was married. I aggressively courted her until she felt with Stockholm syndrome that it was only necessary to marry me. I'm sure it works out for everyone that way. Another one from John Burns. Squeezed by nerds. You usually have to pay double. I don't know.
You're funny.
Oh, wrong one. I mean, New Lion King.
No, we
never
that
saw
one.
that. Sorry. Muppets added 2 blacks. Is Oscar too white? Like Oscar the Grouch?
Oscar the Grouch? Was Oscar the Grouch black?
He was a Muppet.
I mean, I don't
He
know.
wasn't black or white. He was a
grumpy.
Muppet.
He was very angry in his trash can.
Yeah, I think it's racist to be like, I think Oscar was black. Why?
I don't know. He's the one who said it here. Now it's the first time I've ever thought about it.
I've never even remotely even considered the race of Sesame Street characters. Thank you. This is
do any Muppets
I
have
never
race?
have either. Well, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I mean, Big Bird is yellow.
Well, how does Mr. Snuffleupagus identify?
Right. That's a great question. Non-binary.
Yes.
Well, is Snuffleupagus a Muppet? Or is he a man in a suit?
Ooh, good call.
You know,
These are
what's
really
the difference?
hardcore questions.
I mean, people have been man in suits for a lot longer than Muppets have existed.
That's true. Very accurate.
So how do you delineate between people with hands up their asses or if you're a man in a suit? What's the difference?
From John Burns, United Emperor Loyalists left in 1976 going to California?
Going to Canada.
Canada.
Oh, Canada.
Oh, Canada. Why that's okay. CA is also an abbreviation for our state. I apologize. Okay, 1976. That's when the nation was born. Oh, that works or something. Demolition Man. Sly and I was a good kisser. Damn.
Sly and I was a good kisser. That's a great movie. I love that movie with Sylvester Stallone and
Written by Peter Lankoff, who married Audie England, the romantic lead in Free Enterprise.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
Demolition Man was also prophetic. Someone mentioned to me this the other day on Twitter. They're like, what they're doing now with ads, they're going to be starting putting like the names of sponsors in the background or on cups, or change what a can, Pepsi can, do a Mountain Dew can, etc. They did that in Demolition Man in the 90s. When the international markets, it was Pizza Hut and not Taco Bell.
Right.
Well, I just want to know how they figure out how to do the seashell so I don't have to use toilet paper anymore.
You want to know what's funny? There's a video on YouTube that has 5 million views where it says the seashell is explained, and he doesn't explain a goddamn thing. It's so frustrating. It's like 10 minutes of him explaining the movie
We all
and then
wanna
never
know.
explaining the actual seashells.
Yeah.
And we're going to wrap up the John Burns jazz segment with his final, or maybe it's final. We don't even know. It's like words you don't see, my super chats.
Is
This
it a
has been the
haiku, John?
Burns
Is it a
jazz
haiku?
segment.
I don't know.
It is a
And
haiku.
from
Thank you.
Ghostwriter, grew up in the South, never experienced that, Rob.
I never experienced that.
Yeah, you were fortunate, Ghostwriter,
Because
if
you were in the
never
South.
Experienced it.
Yeah, or he did grow up in the South, and he never experienced what I experienced. I guess all I'm saying is that just find a really look. Nowadays, I'm sure it doesn't matter, but I did spend a summer in South Carolina and had a brief bout with racism that I thought was interesting. And I was I was young. I was like 11 or something. And I also, when I was in South Carolina, I was in Greenville, and then we went to McMinnville, or we went to McMinnville's in Oregon. We went to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and it was the first time I heard the word titties, and I didn't know what it meant. I was like, that she got some great titties. And I'm like, what is titties? Like, I had to ask, because we would say tits, in Seattle, Washington State, West Coast, and I didn't I just didn't get it. And I finally said to my buddy Jimmy, I'm like, what are these guys? Why are they always saying titties? And Jimmy looks at me, like we're like 11 or 12. He goes,
right,
boobs, man, boobs like tits. And I was like, well, why did they say titties? Where does the itties part come from? And I still never got it. Like, why titties?
It's the itty bitty titty committee.
That
was it.
Bro, Rob, I had a similar thing when I was my freshman year of high school. Someone said, yo, man, check out that girl there. She got them tickle bitties. And I was like, tickle bitties? And this is why I was so innocent. I'm like, what? And I played along like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah. And then after, like, I was perplexed the whole day. I'm like, what the hell? It's a tickle bitty. What is it? I don't know what a tickle bitty is. I'm like, who can I ask where they're not going to make fun of me because they know and I don't? And there was no internet. I couldn't Google it, okay?
Yeah.
So finally, after school, I'm going to get my bike, and I see the weird kid. There's a real weird kid, who, by the way, ended up being a great guy, but he was weird to everyone else. He's undoing his chain. He always said hi to me every day, and I always was like, oh, all right, man, whatever. And I'm like, hey, you wanna walk our bikes home together? I knew we lived in the same direction. He's like, and he was super excited. He's like, yeah, okay. And about halfway through, I'm like, do you know what a tickle bitty is? And he's like, yeah, of course. I'm like, but do you really? He's like, yeah. I'm like, all right, define it for me. He goes, a pickle titty. I'm like, oh yeah, that's it. That's where it is. I get it. Yeah. Oh my God. It took me literally 9 hours and a very awkward conversation with someone who I ended up being very good friends with because of that stupid phrase.
Wow.
Tickle bitties.
Tickle bitties. It's a way to say it so the adults don't yell at you.
That's what it was. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. The kids got it easy now. They can just Google everything. Urban Dictionary. I had to figure it out.
It's true, man.
Yeah, when I was in the third grade, I actually went to an all-black school.
Really?
For all of third grade when I was 8 years old. Bakersfield. I lived in Bakersfield.
Bakersfield, yeah.
And they had they sectioned off. It was very segregated in Bakersfield, and they had a black community called Cottonwood, where it was just pretty much where all the black people lived. And then
that would get
our
canceled
neighborhood.
today.
What's that?
You couldn't call a town Cottonwood today.
You couldn't, but that's what it was called. Yeah. I know what you're saying, but that's what it was called. And so I lived in another neighborhood, which is kind of on the perimeter of that. And they chopped off like 6 houses in our neighborhood and added it to the school district in Cottonwood called Casa Loma. And my parents fought like hell because I didn't know what was going to happen. Well, when I got to school, they said, that is the fastest white kid I have ever seen, because I ran like hell every day to the school bus. I got my ass beat on a daily basis. But you know what? Kids are just assholes. So,
Yeah, kids are assholes.
I never held that, so it didn't even matter.
Yeah, the way I dealt with bullying in high school is I was the funny guy. So when someone wanted to fight me, I would just make fun of them until everyone was laughing with me. And then as soon as there was an empty moment and there was no one around, that guy would just punch me in the face. From Julian Wong. YouTube blocks super chats with too many keywords. The title of the book is My $20 Super Chat. It's funding now on Indiegogo. Thank you guys. Great show. I don't even know if that's a real thing, but that'd be a cool idea.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for that. We'll check it out for sure. Thank you, Julian.
And then we got a super chat from Goron Faith again. Let's talk about the GoFundMe for the Salty Nerds. We already did, my friend. You guys can go there. The link is here. Here's the link. GoFundMe.com/F/ right there. Las Vegas Podcaster Studios. Go there and support the boys. They're getting a lot of support, which is great. And there would have been a time where this would have happened like 3 years ago, and no one would have given them any support. Yeah. So I really appreciate the community. Everyone tightened up and they're getting them back on their feet, which is awesome. I'm just blown away at the amount of support they've got.
They probably wouldn't want me to share this, but they borrowed that money. So the fact that they borrowed to buy this equipment, it's like any business when you start out, you have to borrow money sometimes. So yeah, so it's not like it's easily replaceable. They still owe that money. So, if you can support them, cool. They really good guys.
Okay. That's it for super chats, my friends.
All right, Rob, thank you so much for coming on today. You're so generous, blessing us with your time. You have a whole show tonight to do, so hopefully you can do that. Everybody, make sure you show up over at the Burnett Work. Go see Rob's show tonight. He's going to talk, I think you said you were talking about Star Trek tonight, right?
Yes, a subject I don't ever talk about on my channel, but I figured I'd talk about it tonight.
It's foreign to me,
yeah.
I say.
Yeah, so make sure you guys get over there to check out Rob. Do you have anything else coming up? When do we get to see our next Lana video?
Oh, I put it up. She reviews Battle Royale.
Okay, cool.
So you can see she just sent me a short. I'll put up a short from it today. Awesome. On Instagram and Facebook and on YouTube on the shorts. But yeah, and I think they're doing Texas Chainsaw Massacre next. So
cool. And well, that's a movie you did, so.
Well, they're doing the original. The original. Not Leatherface. I told them to do the original. They consult with me, so I'm like, I want to get like high intensity exploitation cinema at its finest.
Nice.
That she can talk about it. The Battle Royale review she did. It's great.
Can't wait to see it.
Great. Yeah.
Awesome. And thank all you guys for coming.
Rob,
it's on the channel now?
You always come to this channel. It's awesome. I know you stream a lot. I've offered. If you ever want someone who mildly understands what you're saying to make you laugh, I'm here on your channel, bro.
Well, you guys got to come. You guys got to be on my. I've been on your channel enough. You got to come on my channel.
Just tell me when and where. I'm there. Okay.
All right.
Unless it's like your normal 1 o'clock in the morning, I might be sleeping. But I've woken up. I've woken up, gone to the bathroom, and looked at my phone. And I'm saying, "Oh, Rob's streaming."
The Midnight Musings, man. It went on late night the other night.
Yeah, it did.
It gives me something to do in the middle of the night. It's nice.
Okay, brother. Bring us home.
All right. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate you guys watching. Thanks for sticking around. We'll be back on Thursday, where hopefully we'll be walking through some Enterprise ships. We're trying to work that out with the O-Toy guys right now. And then, of course, next Monday, we're going to have, if you're a Star Trek fan, of course, we're going to have Professor James Moriarty himself. Daniel Davis will be on the show next Monday as our guest. And hopefully Rob will be able to join us again. And we're going to have, I think, some guys from the Shuttle Pod show as well. So come on back, and we appreciate you guys spending time with us today.
I'm Olivia Munn, and I know that Kevin and Chris are hosting the show today, so it might be missing a feminine touch. So I thought I'd inject a little femininity into the show. So here you go. Vagina, 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 Kevin's mom's vagina, Kevin's vagina, coochie, vagina, my vagina is a little itchy right now, but...
Well, let's judge booth babes at Comic-Con. You can't do that no more. Making gay jokes with a fat suit on. You can't do that no more. MySpace girl of the week, can't do that no more. Making fun of someone for being a geek, I said you can't do that no more. No more bust boob jokes being